Lord of Mystery. The Return of the Stars chapter 421 to 440. After Klein finished reading Russell's diary, the members of the Tarot Club naturally turned the topic to what happened recently in Backland. Is the meteor shower in Backland really a divine punishment? As the hanged man Alger asked this question, the members of the Tarot Club naturally turned their eyes to Audrey and Furs. In previous conversations, there are 3 Tarot Club members living in Backland: the unreliable Mr. Moon, the Miss Magician who had been crazy about her presence some time ago, and Miss Justice who has always been recognized as a low and noble. Oops, I'm not in Backland this time, and I don't know what happened in Backland at all. Audrey's heart moved slightly, and she deliberately looked at Miss Magician, naturally diverting everyone's attention from her. She already knew that the real identity of Miss Magician was Ms. Furs, thanks to the smart and reliable Susie. When the Tarot Club was about to be held, Ms. Furs suddenly said that she wanted to take a nap, which made her suspicious instantly after preparing the same excuse. Then, pretending not to care, he sent Susie, Miss Detective's most capable assistant, to investigate. Soon, he discovered the little secret hidden by Furs. Miss Magician is Ms. Furs. Furs, who was watched by all the members of the Tarot Club, showed a panic on her face. She was not in Backland during this period, but accompanied Miss Audrey to South Wiltshire. It was Hugh who told her what happened in Backland. She knew very little, but she would not reveal the news that she was not in Backland. She had a special feeling that Miss Justice, who also lived in Backland, might know her. This is the retribution that the Augustus family has brought upon themselves. This sentence was Hugh's original words, and she also felt that it was very suitable. Anyway, the Augustus family was not a good thing. Alger whispered, "Retribution? Punishment from which god? The Lord of Storms?" He also felt that the meteor shower might have been caused by a powerful, extraordinary person in the storm path, and some people in the church also thought so. During this period, Govington too has been making frequent moves, which has made the top leaders of the Church of Storms unhappy. Ahem. Just when everyone fell into a brief silence, Mr. Moon, Emlyn, who was always not very serious, pretended not to care and coughed twice. When everyone looked over, he tried his best to put on a mature and calm look, and said in a heavy tone, "This is a punishment from the stars." Punishment from the stars? Furs was the most surprised one. She was a believer in the stars, but she didn't know about this. Instead, Mr. Moon, who had never been serious, knew it first. "I, a believer in the stars, am really a failure." Thinking of this, shame filled her cheeks. This scene was also seen by Audrey. "Are you sure?" Alger asked a little unsure. "Of course." Emlyn raised his head proudly, but when he caught Mr. Fool's gaze, he lowered his head and quickly explained. "This is the oracle of our blood clan ancestor himself. He asked us not to provoke the believers of the stars in the near future. Of course, this does not mean that our blood clan is afraid of the so-called believers of the stars, but we have always loved peace and do not like to make enemies with others. Although the stars are shining, the glory of our blood clan has also covered the sky." The Tarot Club members naturally skipped the last 2 sentences and focused on the first sentence. It was really the work of the stars. Although he did not need to speak to explain what happened in Backland, Klein still secretly cheered for his accurate prediction. Furs also cheered for himself in his heart. She was a genuine believer of the stars. Even the ancestor of the blood clan, Lilith, sent down an oracle not to make enemies with the believers of the stars. This is a big deal. As for Mr. Moon's remarks, they only showed his naivety and bluffing. After a brief shock, everyone tacitly moved away from the topic. On the one hand, they did not dare to delve too much into the specific things between the gods, and on the other hand, they did not want to see Emlyn's smug face. If Mr. Fool was not here, his tail would definitely be lifted to the sky, and then he would say that he was the savior of the blood clan chosen by the ancestor of the blood clan. Audrey, who was not in a very good mood today, did not care much even when she heard that the Augustus family was punished by the stars. After the Tarot Club members finished discussing this matter, she looked around and asked, "I have a patient who has some problems with his mind. What kind of method can effectively help him?" When she asked, her eyes deliberately glanced at Furs. Furs was stunned. "There is a problem with the mind? It feels so familiar." Isn't this the symptom of Mr. Asta? Is it just a simple coincidence, or does this Miss Justice know Mr. Asta? So is there a possibility that this Miss Justice is Miss Audrey? Furs was shocked by her clever guess, and she looked at Miss Justice with a little more thought. The more she looked, the more she felt that Miss Justice was Miss Audrey. The two people had a high degree of overlap in appearance. They were both noble ladies from Backland, and their personalities and financial resources were also very similar. When Furz's eyes accidentally met Audrey's meaningful eyes, she was a little uncertain again. The other party seemed to have seen through her identity, so when she mentioned this matter, she deliberately looked at her. Furz's heart trembled slightly, and immediately retracted her gaze, deliberately showing a relaxed and natural attitude to hide her panic in her heart. Alas, Ms. Furz should have noticed my identity. I originally wanted to hide it for a while. Audrey sighed slightly in her heart, but she did not regret making a self-explosion-like move at the Tarot Club today. After all, Mr. Asta's matter could not be delayed, and she needed to find a suitable method to diagnose and treat him. Another point is that Ms. Furz has been with her recently, and it would be good to deepen the relationship at the right time. For spiritual problems, enlightenment and relief should be a better way. Alger was as calm and reliable as ever. Based on his experience, he told Audrey a lot about this aspect and possible feasible measures. Audrey listened silently, occasionally asking some unclear questions. Combining Alger's rich experience, she constantly improved her initial method of helping Mr. Hasta get rid of his spiritual dilemma. Klein, who was standing by, also listened with interest. He also felt that he seemed to have some minor mental problems recently, and he might have to trouble Miss Justice in the future. Punning port, as soon as the Tarot Club ended, Furz left her room and came to the door of Audrey's room. She wanted to knock on the door, but she was a little hesitant. She was just suspicious and couldn't be sure that Miss Audrey was the wealthy and generous Miss Justice. Woof, Susie, who was guarding the door of the room, looked at the hesitant Furz in doubt. Furz thought for a while, his eyes lit up slightly, squatted down and said to Susie in a low voice. Susie, are you guarding here to cover for Miss Audrey? Woof, Susie showed her ignorance at the right time. I mean, do you know that Miss Audrey may have a hidden identity? Woof. Before Furz could ask anything, the door creaked open, and Audrey walked out lazily. The tiredness and fatigue on her face looked like she was woken up from a nap. Miss Audrey, were you taking a nap just now? Furz asked carefully. Audrey smiled and said innocently, yes, I have always had the habit of taking a nap. Didn't Miss Furz take a nap this afternoon? Did you sleep well? Furz's face changed slightly, nodded, thought for a while, and asked tentatively, what does Miss Audrey plan to do about Mr. Asta? Of course, I will find Mr. Asta first. Audrey's natural and innocent tone made Furz choke on the question she wanted to ask next. Facing such a Miss Audrey, it was difficult for her to continue to test anything. Susie, it's time to get up. We should go to rescue Mr. Hasta. Audrey patted Susie's head twice, signaling her to get up and follow her steps. Furz followed silently behind her. When they came to the street, Audrey bought some high-quality dried fish. Susie barked twice, and Audrey bought some beef jerky for Susie. She liked to chew jerky recently. Furz just glanced at the prices of dried fish and beef jerky, and pretended not to see it. In her heart, she was feeling that Susie's food expenses for one day should be enough for her for 3 days, right? And she also heard from Miss Audrey that Susie needed to prepare snacks twice a day in addition to the normal 3 meals. It's great to be Miss Audrey's dog. Furz hurriedly suppressed the envy in her heart. With the experience of the last visit, Audrey and Furz quickly entered the house where Hasta lived this time, and successfully met Sharon and Azishara. When Audrey took out the carefully prepared dried fish, Azishara's eyes moved, but she finally closed them and lay lazily in Sharon's arms. It stood firmly on Miss Sharon's side, so don't try to tempt it with dried fish. Is it not to your taste? Audrey frowned slightly, but soon relaxed. That's right, the dried fish here is far less delicious than the meat produced in the northern glaciers of the Fussac Empire. I will invite you to taste it when we return to Backland. Azishara's eyelids trembled, and her feelings towards Miss Audrey improved a lot. After all, how could a girl who was willing to please a cute little cat be a bad person? After ending the brief exchange with Azishara, Audrey looked at Sharon, who had been silent all the time. Seeing the other party like this, she had to speak up first to find a topic. I met Mr. Asta on the street before. Audrey started talking first, and when Sharon seemed to be interested, she continued. Mr. Asta seems to have some mental problems. I think we should help Mr. Asta through this difficult time. Sharon did not answer immediately, but just looked at Audrey quietly. The last time Asta suddenly came back, she had an uneasy guess. Miss Audrey had just arrived here not long ago, and Asta, who had been missing for a long time, appeared. Could it be that Asta came back because of the arrival of Miss Audrey? While Sharon was thinking, Azishara and Susie made a meow and a bark respectively. Asta had appeared again since he left last time, and he was standing outside the door at this time. Azishara rushed towards Hasta again. This time, Hasta smiled, caught Azishara, held it in his arms, and patted its head lovingly. Mr. Hasta. Audrey greeted happily, and the bright smile on the girl's face was particularly brilliant. Seeing this scene, Sharon looked at Hasta deeply with her blue eyes. He really appeared because of Miss Audrey's arrival. Miss Audrey, long time no see. Hasta changed his attitude when they met before, and looked at Furs and joked. Miss Furs, you secretly took away the most beautiful gem in Backland like this, but it is a major crime. I secretly took away the most beautiful gem in Backland? Oh, it was obviously Miss Audrey who used the gold pound to tempt the poor me. Can I blame me for not being firm in my will? And Mr. Hasta, you are the one who secretly kidnapped Miss Audrey, right? If it weren't for you, how could Miss Audrey be so bold to leave Backland? In just this moment, Furs sketched out a touching story in her mind about a noble lady who chose to elope because of love. But when her eyes glanced at Miss Sharon with a hint of sadness in her eyes, she added another emotionally sad person, Miss Sharon, to her fantasy story. Young nobles like Mr. Hasta are naturally very popular with girls. When someone is happy, there will naturally be someone sad. Some people become the protagonist, while others will naturally become supporting roles. As for her and Zio, they don't even have the ability to join the story and become a supporting role. M's Furs? That, Mr. Hasta, you look normal today? Furs, whose name was called, withdrew from the fantasy story. For a moment, she was a little speechless, but her meaning was still accurate. Mr. Hasta today is indeed different from the last time she saw him. Hasta nodded. Well, the problem has been solved. After he came back from Backland, he stayed in the Hall of Stars, and the memories that came one after another filled the blank in his heart. He also truly understood what he had experienced during this period of time. Not long after taking the potion, he successfully promoted to Sequence 4 Lost Homelander. The reason why his heart was blank was that he lacked the corresponding memories. On the one hand, it was the influence of the ceremony held when he was promoted to Lost Homelander. At the moment of successful promotion, he lost his spiritual sustenance, and memory is an important part of the soul. In addition, it has been less than 2 years since he entered the mysterious world, and he has become a Sequence 4 demigod. The speed is too fast, and there are also some hidden dangers. On the other hand, it is the need of the Lost Homelander sequence itself to lose the spiritual sustenance, and then slowly find it back. This process is the key to playing the Lost Homelander and digesting the corresponding potion. If he had not experienced it thoroughly once, it would be difficult for him to truly understand the real role requirements of this sequence. Has Mr. Hasta recovered completely? Aware of the regret and pity in her words, Audrey blushed and added, I mean, it would be great if Mr. Hasta is okay. Hasta just smiled at the panicked Audrey. I really need Miss Audrey's help. Really? Audrey's eyes brightened instantly, shining like a pure crystal. Woof. Susie also declared her presence on the side. Really? In the girl's expectant eyes, Hasta nodded, then looked past Audrey and looked at the silent Sharon. Before he could say anything, Sharon turned her back indifferently, walked a few steps to the window sill, and had no intention of paying attention to him. Meow. Azishara raised her head and called Hasta, then jumped out of Hasta's arms, ran to Sharon, and buried herself in Sharon's arms again, as if she wanted to share the warmth she had received from Hasta with Sharon, who was in a bad mood. Asta, who knew that he was at fault, didn't say much. Miss Audrey and Miss Salted Fish were still here, so he would wait until no one was around before he talked to Sharon about his experiences during this period. "Mr. Asta, what do you need my help with?" Audrey showed great interest in helping. "When I need it, I'll go to Miss Audrey for help. I will try my best to help Mr. Asta," and Susie, who has always been looking forward to helping Mr. Asta. Audrey still felt a little sorry. She had always wanted to save Mr. Asta, and even took the initiative to ask Mr. Hanged Man for advice in the Tarot Club, but when Mr. Asta appeared again, she could no longer sense the confusion and emptiness in Mr. Asta's heart. Asta chatted with Audrey and Furs for a while, and when it got dark, Audrey and Furs left first. In the room, Hasta looked at Sharon, who had her back turned to him, closed the door and walked over. He glanced at Azishara lying in Sharon's arms, winked at her, and Azishara left immediately. With Sharon in his arms, he wisely left the room along the window sill, and then quietly hid in a shadowed corner where he could peek into the communication between Hasta and Sharon. In front of the window sill, the evening breeze blew gently from the sea, blowing Sharon's pale golden hair around her ears. She was still wearing a black palace dress. At this moment, she looked like an abandoned doll, standing quietly, on the side, alone, full of sadness and loneliness. Hasta looked at Sharon's back, thinking of the scene where he had seen Sharon's vulnerable side in the Hall of Stars. He couldn't help but gently stretched out his right hand to brush Sharon's earlobe, and rebroadcast the hair that had been blown away by the wind. "Tuck it back behind your ear." Sharon had no reaction, but her earlobes turned slightly red. "Sharon!" Hasta shouted softly, but Sharon still didn't look back. She looked out the window, wondering what she was looking at, or not looking at anything at all. After a while, Hasta, who was behind him, came up and put his arms around Sharon's waist. Her body froze instantly, and the small hand that hung naturally was held in the palm of Hasta's hand, and the back of her hand was caressing gently. She wanted to avoid such close contact, when Hasta suddenly used force to hug her into his arms. This time, Sharon's body froze completely, and there was an obvious shy look on her expressionless face. The look in her eyes was very complicated. For a moment, she allowed Hasta to hug herself gently. Sharon, during this time, Asta was about to rub elbows with Sharon and talk about what happened during this period. Suddenly, he felt the warm and soft Sharon in his arms disappear, as if he had turned into a shy cloud that had just been dyed red and melted into the table. Inside the mirror, he hid and refused to come out. Asta was stunned for a moment, then chuckled, came to the table and sat down. He looked at Sharon, who was hiding in the mirror and refused to come out. He didn't pay too much attention to it. After sorting out his thoughts for a while, he started to talk about this paragraph. Time's own experience. He also specifically explained that he did not appear because of Miss Audrey's arrival. Outside the window, Azishara was listening with her ears pricked up. Her face was serious at first, but later she showed a look of disgust. "Although my master is much smarter this time and knows that he feels sorry for Miss Sharon, why not try harder? Miss Sharon is hiding in the mirror, so you should also go in the mirror and chat face to face. This is a good opportunity to speed up the relationship." Azishara, who secretly listened for a while longer, looked at the moon that had risen on the sea, ended her eavesdropping, found a comfortable place, and lay down to enjoy the moonlight. It regretted rejecting Miss Audrey's offer of dried fish. After Ashera left, in the room, Hasta put away the mirror on the table and put it in his arms, then opened a travel door only for travelers. With just one step, he came to a quiet place off the beaten path. It is also very suitable to watch the rising moon on a small island in the middle of the sea. Although the bright moon is slightly reddish, it is still beautiful and moving. Hasta placed the mirror in the palm of his hand, whispered a few words, and Sharon's figure was revealed on the smooth mirror. He still looked as calm as water, as if nothing happened just now. But Hasta was also clearly aware of Sharon's inner shame and confusion at this moment. He made no other moves for fear of scaring away the puppet girl who had been with him the longest. Hasta sat on a stone, placed the mirror over his heart, and the mirror faced the direction of the rising crimson moon. While admiring the tranquility tonight, he occasionally chatted for a few words. Most of the time, Hasta was talking, and Sharon listened slowly. Only after a long time did Sharon occasionally answer a word or two. When the crimson moon rose from the depths of the sea to the sky, Hasta lay on his back, with one hand behind his head and the other wrapped around the mirror on his heart. In Hasta's invisible mirror, Sharon's eyes gradually softened. Although her blue eyes were still confused, they gradually became brighter. Her eyebrows were curved, even more moving than the crimson moon in the sky. At night, the crimson moon rising from the sea illuminates people with different moods. In Alfred's villa, in the guest room on the third floor, Furs was diligent for once. She was sitting at the desk, laughing and writing furiously. She felt that her thoughts were flowing like a spring, and she was writing as if she was assisted by God. She had a very clear idea of what kind of wonderful words and moving stories she had in her mind. As a writer, it is a common way to write based on people and things around her. It's just that she used to stay with Zio. Zio's height and personality are more suitable for being a female supporting role, not for being the heroine of a book that can sell well. Miss Audrey is a natural heroine. She doesn't need any halo or do anything. She just needs to stand there and naturally become the focus of everyone's attention. Similarly, a young and handsome earl like Mr. Asta is also suitable to be the male protagonist in a novel. Yes, the new novel she is writing is based on a love story, with a little sweetness in the twists and turns. Mr. Asta and Miss Audrey are the prototypes of the hero and heroine in her story. She has already thought of the general plot of the story. The hero and the heroine were childhood sweethearts, playing together since childhood and falling in love with each other. When the hero grew up, his family suddenly fell into poverty, his parents died, and his family property was lost. He felt that he was poor and was not worthy of the noble and elegant heroine with a good family environment. He could only hide his love as surging as the sea. In addition, between the hero and heroine, there is a serious, old-fashioned and unkind earl, the heroine's father. He wanted to marry his most precious daughter into the royal family, so he firmly opposed the relationship between the hero and heroine. In order to overcome many obstacles, the hero decided to leave the heroine and go out to fight for his career so that he could be worthy of his sweetheart in the future. As for how to fight for success, this part is not the focus. First chose to pass it over and directly push the time to 3 years later. She thought about it again, and when the hero leaves his beloved, she makes a 3-year agreement, so that the readers can be moved and arouse their curiosity. 3 years later, the hero reappears in front of the heroine with glory, but before the heroine can be happy, she sees another beautiful and delicate girl standing next to the hero, who is like a doll, and they have a close relationship, looking like a loving couple. As for the supporting actress, Furs naturally brings Miss Sharon into it. As for the emotional entanglement between her and the hero, Furs plans to leave it to be solved one by one later. There are many ways to deal with it, such as setting the heroine to fall into the sea and lose his memory, and then treating the supporting actress as the heroine's favorite. You can also set the heroine to be saved by the supporting actress. Because of the favor, it is difficult to reject the supporting actress's feelings, and bring her around. The more Furs wrote, the more her mind became open, and she wrote even faster. She was so focused that she didn't notice that the prototype of the heroine, Miss Audrey, had come to her room and was standing in front of her admiring the story she wrote. Audrey's cheeks flushed slightly, her eyebrows gathered slightly, she looked around curiously, and she wanted to slap Furs on the head to see if she could wake up this writer who was close to being obsessed. After writing a big plot, Furs put down the pen in her hand, leaned back slightly, closed her eyes, and prepared to rest for a while, and then continued to write the rest of the story while the inspiration was still there. After a while, she suddenly felt something was wrong, and hurriedly opened her eyes and looked forward, only to see Miss Audrey standing quietly in front of her, holding the manuscript she had just written in her hand and slowly flipping through it. Furs was so frightened that she almost fell backwards. She stood up in a panic, looking at Audrey with a nervous face, and said in a dry and embarrassed tone, "Miss Audrey, why are you here tonight?" Audrey just glanced at her lightly, without saying anything, and continued to flip through the manuscript she had just written. "Miss Audrey, listen to my defense. No, listen to my explanation. I didn't write it like this on purpose." Furs blushed and tried her best to explain. "You know, we writers sometimes use people and things around us as reference objects, and then make a second artistic processing, and we definitely don't want to deliberately discredit or distort the facts." The more Furs explained, the less confident she became. Anyone who was not blind could see what reality her story was based on for artistic processing. I will burn the manuscript later," Furs said weakly again, but Audrey still didn't react, just silently turned to the last page of the manuscript. Miss Audrey," Furs spoke softly, as if she was afraid to disturb Audrey who was reading, and afraid that she couldn't hear. Audrey still ignored Furs. After reading the last page, she put the manuscript back on the table, frowned slightly, as if thinking about something. Furs didn't dare to disturb her, and could only timidly and shamefully glance at Audrey. "It's not good for you to write like this. I know, I admit my mistake, I will burn the manuscript later." Seeing that Audrey was finally willing to speak, Forsey quickly admitted his mistake. After all, he was the one responsible for this kind of thing, and he was caught red-handed by the rightful owner. If the hero and heroine really love each other so much, how could they give up so easily because of other people's obstruction? "Miss Audrey, I really know I was wrong." Huh? Forsey was accustomed to apologizing and admitting his mistakes, but after hearing what he said next, he suddenly felt that something was wrong. Miss Audrey's tone of voice did not sound angry at all, but rather like an ordinary reader commenting on the content of the novel she read. The heroine in it is not well portrayed. She has no opinion of her own at all and seriously lacks courage. She just has a beautiful skin. There are too few stories between the hero and heroine, and it's hard to tell whether they really love each other. Forsey's little mouth was slightly opened, and he looked at Miss Audrey with a blank expression. Didn't Miss Audrey realize that the novel she wrote tonight was based on her and Mr. Hastur? This is impossible, right? In her impression, Miss Audrey was not only noble and elegant, but also very smart. She felt that Miss Audrey was perfect in every aspect except being innocent and naive. Also, the reason why the Earl blocked the relationship between the hero and heroine was entirely out of love for his daughter, not because he wanted to use his daughter as a political marriage tool. Well, Miss Audrey, in fact, the prototype of this novel story. First felt that he should remind Miss Audrey a little, but she was interrupted by Miss Audrey before he finished speaking. The main story of the novel is okay, but many details need to be polished more carefully so that readers can enjoy it more. Forsey closed his mouth very wisely and listened silently to Miss Audrey's analysis of the characters and plots in the novel. When Miss Audrey was almost finished speaking, Furs said weakly, "Miss Audrey, I will correct it as you think. And the supporting actress, can't the relationship between her and the hero be just friends? Why does a simple relationship have to be so complicated?" "Yeah, I'll revise it later." Forsey nodded. Even though he didn't understand why Miss Audrey said this, Furs had already made up his mind that this novel would be an apology gift to Miss Audrey. But she still didn't understand. Did Miss Audrey really not see that this novel was based on her and Mr. Hastur? Except for the different names, everything else basically corresponds. Or is it that Miss Audrey has actually noticed it, but just to avoid embarrassment, she deliberately pretended not to notice it? Miss Audrey is so kind. Thinking of this possibility, Forsey's eyes were almost filled with stars. Audrey ignored Forsey's gaze, frowned slightly and picked out all the places in the novel that she thought were problematic. Furs remembers everything in his heart and will never let Miss Audrey down. After Audrey finished speaking and left the room, Forsey looked at the closed door and then realized a question. What brought Miss Audrey to her room tonight? After thinking for a while, Forsey sat at the desk again and wrote down all the changes that Miss Audrey mentioned on a new blank piece of paper. Does Miss Audrey like this kind of story? It's so innocent. Forsey looked at the content above and fell into deep thought. If it is modified as Miss Audrey said, then this novel can be renamed, Single Love, or Special Favor. The hero and heroine in the novel are in love with each other. After going through an adventure story that is not tortuous at all, they finally get the blessings of their family and friends and walk together happily. No matter what kind of supporting actress he meets, the hero always chooses the heroine without hesitation, stands firmly on her side, becomes her strongest supporter, and loves her extremely. From the perspective of first professional writer, this is a sweet article, very sweet, warm and pure, without too many impurities, and there are even very few bad people in it. The hero and heroine always firmly choose each other and go in both directions. Not to mention, seriously, it looks a bit delicious. It really fits Miss Audrey's character. The corners of Forsy's mouth raised slightly, and then he began to revise the previous novel's story overnight. The next day, Forsy, who had just laid down and slept for a short time, was awakened by Susie's urging. She struggled to get up from the bed, with obvious dark circles under her eyes. She tucked the manuscript she had revised and sorted out last night under her arm, and then yawned and walked out of the room. "Did you sleep well last night?" In the restaurant on the first floor, Audrey, who was already ready to enjoy breakfast, looked curiously at Forsy, who came downstairs listlessly. Forsy subconsciously stretched out his hand to scratch his head, looked at the hair that fell between his fingers, and said with a wry smile, "I stayed up late last night, and I didn't fall asleep until the early morning." As she spoke, she took out the manuscript from her arm and placed it neatly in front of Audrey. Audrey asked, "What is this new story revised last night based on your input?" In order to do this well, she stayed up until early morning, which could be regarded as a formal apology to Miss Audrey. "Oh, let's have breakfast first." Audrey just glanced at it and quickly looked away, focusing on the food in front of her. She didn't know if it was because she was dazzled. Forsy seemed to see Miss Audrey's cheeks turning red just now, and there seemed to be a hint of emotion in her eyes. Inexplicably ashamed. "It must be that I am dazzled." Forsy still chose to doubt his own eyes. After finishing breakfast quickly, Forsy returned to the room to catch up on some sleep. Audrey finally focused her eyes on the stack of arranged manuscripts on the table. His eyes were slightly wandering, and his cheeks were slightly red and hot thinking of what happened last night. She didn't know why she said those words last night. She originally planned to chat with Forsy last night, but after seeing the novel she wrote, she forgot about this purpose and turned to care about the content of the novel. After just a brief look, she could tell that the hero and heroine in the story were based on herself and Mr. Hastur. After reading the story with mixed feelings of novelty, excitement, and happiness, she had objections to many storylines in it, and then unconsciously discussed with Furs how to modify it. After talking about these things, she finally came to her senses and realized that something was wrong with her words and deeds. "It seems that I have been brought into the heroine of the story, and I even feel empathy with her." When she thought that the prototype of the story was herself and Mr. Hastur, her face turned red and hot. "It's just a normal novel story. The characters are all fictitious, so don't worry about it so much." Audrey explained to herself in her mind, then got up and took the manuscript on the table back to the room. In the room, Susie wandered closer to Audrey, who was carefully reading the manuscript. She put her front paws on the edge of the chair and leaned forward, trying to see clearly the book Audrey was reading. When it comes to reading, he doesn't want Audrey to surpass him. But without waiting for it to see the contents of the manuscript, Audrey flipped it with her little hand, closed the manuscript, turned slightly to look at Susie, and said seriously, "This is Ms. Forsy's secret creation, and it is not suitable for you to read." "Audrey, I think I can watch it." "No, it's not suitable, you can't watch it." All right, facing Audrey, who had a tough attitude, Susie could only give up the idea of taking a look at the manuscript. "Audrey, can you tell me what's in it?" Audrey thought for a while and said with a serious face, "It's a matter between a man and a woman." Susie really didn't understand it now, and Audrey didn't want to explain it to Susie. She just asked Susie not to disturb her and continue reading. After watching Susie leave the room and lie down at the door, she opened the manuscript again and continued to blush. He looked up and raised the corners of his mouth slightly. When noon was approaching, Audrey closed the manuscript with satisfaction and softly hummed a beautiful melody, but soon she frowned. "I feel that this novel is still too short. It should be longer so that it looks more interesting, and there are still many stories that have not been written. For example, after the hero and heroine confess to each other and get married, there is still a lot to write about. Moreover, there are a little few adventure stories, and we could arrange some more scenes to enhance feelings and cling to each other. It seems that Ms. Furs needs to continue writing, but she has such a lazy temperament and has just spent the night. Isn't this not good?" Audrey thought for a while and had a solution in mind. She could pay Ms. Furs to write the book. According to the information disclosed by Ms. Furs herself, she normally earns several hundred gold pounds a year from writing novels. You can spend 500 gold pounds and hire her to write for a year. In this case, you can write other novels and stories where the hero and heroine can get along first and then slowly fall in love with each other. There can also be many other interesting settings. You can also use the original male and female protagonists as the protagonists, and then write a series of novels. Audrey thought seriously for a while and felt happy again. She glanced at Susie guarding the door and found that she was looking at her with deep eyes. "Susie, peeping is an impolite behavior," Audrey said with a stern face. Susie's eyes showed the concentration of a wise man when he encounters a problem. "Audrey, I'm just curious about why your mood can change so quickly." "It's a secret." Audrey had no intention of communicating with Susie for the time being. She wanted to find Ms. Furs and start the temptation of Miss Audrey's gold pound. Furs, who had just finished catching up on sleep, was still a little confused when she heard Miss Audrey's request. She couldn't remember the specific content, but she clearly remembered that Miss Audrey wanted to give her 500 gold pounds as a fee. 500 gold pounds, this is a huge sum of money. Furs's mind immediately became clear, and she readily agreed to Miss Audrey's request. It's just writing some novels, this is her old business. But she couldn't help but wonder, would someone like Miss Audrey also love emotional novels so much? "By the way, Miss Audrey, are we going to visit Mr. Hasta this afternoon?" "Not for now. When are we going to return to Backland? It's almost the new year." "Just stay here for the new year." "Well, Mr. Hasta won't return to Backland this year." "Okay." Furs nodded helplessly. She guessed that Miss Audrey must be longing for freedom. "Then I'll let Zio come here for the new year, otherwise she will be alone in Backland, it's too pitiful." Furs didn't delay and prepared to send the message to Backland quickly by summoning the Spirit World Messenger. "Is there enough time? Even if she starts taking the steam train now, she can't get here within 3 days, right?" Audrey reminded her. It seems so. The light in Furs' eyes dimmed, but soon she thought of a solution. She could ask Mr. Hasta for help. The next day, when Audrey and Furs came to visit, Hasta was in the study giving tasks to Keys. Since the Lowen royal family wanted to target him, he was too lazy to hide it anymore and simply occupied the entire Southwell County. Now the naval officers stationed along the coast of Southwell County are basically his people, which is accumulated through accidents and coincidences. In addition, the members of the Yellow Monks have a strong ability to modify memory, and the loyalty of these people can be guaranteed. Asta is not afraid of the Lowen royal family alone, but the Three Gods Church standing behind is more concerned. Now outside Punning Port, the investigators of the 3 major churches are still guarding, probably waiting for orders from the headquarters. It just so happens that he also wants to see what attitude the Goddess of Night, the Lord of Storms, and the God of Steam and Machinery will have towards the believers of the stars. After finishing his business, Asta asked Keys to go out first, and then went to the lobby on the first floor to receive Audrey and Furs. After listening to Furs's request, he asked her to go to Keys to arrange this matter. It was not difficult to bring Hugh to South Wales before the new year. If he wanted, he could bring him here in less than an hour with the ability of a traveler. But he didn't want to be busy with this matter, so he asked the members of the Yellow Monk to run errands for him. After Furs left, Audrey was left alone with Hasta. Looking at Mr. Hasta in front of her, Audrey couldn't help but think of the novel written by Furs, and a faint red cloud appeared on the tip of her ears. In the past, she was always able to face Mr. Hasta calmly, but now, she was a little flustered and had many unspeakable emotions in her heart. She took a sip of tea, suppressed the complicated emotions in her heart, and then pretended to look around casually. "Miss Sharon, isn't she here today?" "She is not used to interacting with people." "Is that so? Is Miss Sharon also a Beander? She gives people a very special feeling, like a delicate and beautiful doll girl." "Well, she opened the door to the mysterious world earlier than us." "Did you meet when you were adventuring outside?" Audrey lowered her head slightly and took another sip of hot tea. Sharon was also in Backland before. Seeing that Audrey seemed very interested in Sharon, Hasta started from how he knew Sharon, but just briefly introduced her without going too deep. He couldn't say that Sharon liked to hide in the mirror and then be placed on his heart. Such words were too ambiguous for both Sharon and Audrey. Audrey listened with great interest. When she was listening attentively, Hasta's story suddenly stopped, and his eyes passed her and looked towards the direction of the stairs behind her. Audrey followed Haster's gaze and saw that Miss Sharon, who didn't like to interact with people, was standing on the stairs holding the obedient Azishara. The two glanced at each other, and Audrey had a feeling that Miss Sharon showed up because of her arrival. Hasta also showed a surprised look in his eyes. Since the last time he hugged Sharon, she has been keeping a distance from him. Except for playing with Azishara occasionally, she basically stayed in the mirror. Unexpectedly, she suddenly came out of the mirror today. Look at this look, is she coming for Miss Audrey? Is Sharon also interested in Miss Audrey? Why'd I have a bad premonition? Well, why'd I need to worry about this problem? Maybe Sharon just wants to be friends with Miss Audrey? Hasta looked at Sharon again. Sharon on the stairs was just standing quietly holding Azishara, and had no intention of going downstairs. She just looked at him and Audrey calmly from a distance. Audrey also looked at Sharon on the stairs calmly, and it seemed that she had no intention of speaking. The atmosphere seemed to be silent all of a sudden, and gradually became awkward. Hasta could only smile and greet Azishara, who was lying in Sharon's arms, hoping to break this not-so-nice atmosphere with the help of Azishara, the little guy. But Azishara just glanced at him with her eyelids slightly raised, her tail swaying slowly, gently brushing Sharon's arm, without any desire to move, and finally even closed her eyes and pretended to sleep. Miss Sharon, you are still as beautiful as ever today. At this time, Audrey suddenly spoke generously, with an elegant and generous smile on her face, exuding an inexplicable aura, looking like the hostess of this family. Sharon just glanced at Hasta lightly, then glanced at Audrey, then walked down the stairs step by step, walked to Hasta, nodded to Audrey and said, "Miss Audrey, your elegance and beauty are also enviable." Hasta's eyes were more surprised. Does Sharon still have such a side of praising others? Audrey smiled and said, I have always been interested in the mysterious world, especially the mysterious world with people like Miss Sharon, which makes people look forward to it. Your life is also desirable. Miss Sharon, do you mind sitting down and chatting? I heard from Mr. Hasta that you have a lot of adventure experience. Following Audrey's invitation, Sharon hugged Azishara and sat opposite Audrey. As for Hasta, who was ignored, he consciously sat a little further away. Adventure is not something worth showing off. Sharon reached out and stroked Azishara's head while talking softly with Audrey. Her voice was still very cold, and it always sounded like she was keeping people away from her. Audrey didn't care about such a tone of conversation, but talked to Sharon cordially about a lot of things about the mysterious world. After listening to Sharon's brief description, Audrey said with emotion, I have always dreamed of a gorgeous adventure, but I can never get it. Although I know the dangers involved, I am still willing to pay a little price to peek into the different beauty of this world. Sharon did not speak. The Miss Audrey in front of her looked very much like her when she was young. At that time, the Rose School had not changed. She also had a fairy tale dream about gorgeous adventures in her teacher's castle. Miss Sharon, how did you meet Mr. Hasta? Audrey said, looking at Hasta, who was sitting a little far away, and smiled. Mr. Hasta, why are you sitting so far away? Sharon also glanced at him. Although she did not speak, Hasta suddenly understood the deep meaning of her eyes. He had the courage to hug me before, but now he was far away from me in front of Miss Audrey. Was he afraid that Miss Audrey in front of him would misunderstand something? Hasta wanted to confirm Sharon's eyes again, but Sharon had turned her head away, looking like she didn't want to pay attention to him. Even Azishara made a meaningful meow in Sharon's arms. Hasta suppressed his embarrassment. Two beautiful ladies are communicating. I should consciously give way to them. Oh, is that true? Audrey blinked her bright eyes, as if she could see Hasta's inner embarrassment at a glance. Fortunately, Audrey didn't ask the classic question after all. Who is more beautiful, me or Miss Sharon? Guilty. Sharon uttered a word lightly, which made Audrey smile. You guys chat, I'll go see if Furza's business is done. Hasta pretended not to hear Sharon's words, and found a reason to leave, leaving Sharon and Audrey alone. After walking away, Hasta came to his senses. Wouldn't leaving like this verify what Sharon said about guilty conscience? Why would he feel guilty when he didn't do anything? The key point is that when Sharon and Audrey looked at him at the same time, he really felt guilty for a moment. Hasta paused slightly and glanced at Sharon and Audrey, who were happily talking. The two seemed to be emitting invisible auras at the moment, and were testing and colliding in hidden corners. Well, it should be an illusion. Asta retracted his gaze and went to the garden behind the house, waiting for a while until Furs and Zio appeared here through the spiritual world passage. With the help of a sequence 4 demigod of the Yellow Monk, it was not difficult to pass through the spiritual world passage. Thank you for your help, Mr. Asta. It's just a small thing. Mr. Asta, are you waiting for us here on purpose? Furs was a little curious and asked again. Has Audrey left? Miss Audrey is chatting with Sharon, you can join in, Asta said with a smile. Is that so? Furs was obviously moved. Then what else is Mr. Asta doing here? Well, I still have some things to deal with, you go ahead. Asta motioned Furs and Hugh to join Sharon and Audrey's chat. If there are more people, it will be less likely to be boring and not too awkward. As for himself, he just strolled around the garden to relax. But when he had only walked halfway around the garden, he found that Furs and Hugh, who were supposed to join the chat between Sharon and Audrey, also appeared in the garden. He couldn't help but turn around and went to meet them. Before he could speak, Furs smiled awkwardly but politely, and lowered her voice and said, Miss Sharon and Miss Audrey seem to have an inexplicable aura around them. Hugh and I just sat there for a while, and we felt uncomfortable, so we found an excuse to slip into the back garden. Miss Sharon was holding Azishara in her arms, and Miss Audrey was lying at Susie's feet. They looked very balanced, equally matched, Hugh added on the side. Asta was silent. First glanced at him and wanted to laugh a little. Mr. Asta is not uncomfortable staying there, so he comes to the garden to relax? Just now, she was a little confused. How could Mr. Asta, as the protagonist, abandon his guests and come to the garden alone to relax? A pleasant and effective chat must require a certain amount of solitude, Asta explained seriously. I see. I know what Mr. Asta meant. First showed a look of sudden enlightenment, but the corners of her mouth couldn't help but curl up, but she felt that it was impolite to laugh at Mr. Asta in front of her, so she suppressed it a little. What are you talking about? I don't quite understand. Zio looked at Asta and Furs curiously, and always felt that the two of them were playing a guessing game in front of her. Nothing, it's just that it's rare to see Mr. Asta like this. Furs's mouth corners were slightly curled up, and there was a smile in her eyes. In response, Asta just said lightly, I have the potion formula of the recorder in my hand, do you want it? I want it. Furs immediately became excited, but I don't want to sell it for the time being. Furs' smile froze immediately, and her eyes widened slightly. This time it was Zio's turn to laugh on the side. Although she didn't understand what was going on, Furs's frustrated expression was really interesting. Alas! Furs sighed heavily, and then the three of them began to stroll around the garden. Upstairs, Madame Lisa opened the window and looked at the young men and women in the garden. She couldn't help but sigh that it was great to be young. I thought that the God's messenger had a mentality and personality that didn't match his age at this age, but in the end, the God's messenger was essentially a handsome boy who was liked by girls. In addition to Miss Sharon who had been accompanying him all the time, there were actually 3 completely different girls around him. One was noble and elegant, one was intellectual and mature, and one, petite and exquisite? After watching for a while, she closed the window and began to think about whether to write a novel story for the God's messenger. Love is always a topic that will never fade. In the garden, Asta and the other two walked around the garden twice. When they felt that it was about time, they left the garden and returned to where Sharon and Audrey were chatting. Looking from a distance, Sharon and Audrey seemed to have just finished a conversation and took a short break. At this time, they were drinking tea and tasting desserts. Seeing Asta and the other two coming, Sharon just glanced at Asta quietly and quickly looked away. Audrey smiled kindly and said, Mr. Hastur, Sharon just said that you have been to the Republic of Intis, the hometown of Emperor Roussel. Are there any interesting places there? Asta was slightly stunned and glanced at the silent Sharon. It was strange that Sharon would take the initiative to share this kind of thing with Audrey. It's not bad there, but the sun is a little strong. That's all? Audrey's eyes were inquiring, as if confirming something. Furs, who was standing behind Hastur, looked at this scene and couldn't help but start to make up a new storyline in his mind. The name of the chapter can be called, On How to Deal with Two Women at the Same Time. It can also be changed to a love story of 2 women and 1 man, or called Love Shira Field. Welcome to Fanfic Audiobook, your go-to place for immersive audiobooks. If you enjoy the content, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel for more amazing stories. This question is a bit difficult to answer. Hasta carefully recalled the scenery he saw in Intis, and there was no particularly interesting scenery. He did not go to the White Maple Palace where Rissell fell in the end. The Cathedral of the Eternal Sun Church is not bad. The one that impressed me the most was the Eternal Sun Church. Hearing Hasta's answer, Audrey still looked at him with a smile on her face. Don't you have any other interesting experiences with Miss Sharon? At this time, Sharon's eyes also looked over, as if she wanted to see how Hasta would answer this question. Even Azishara in her arms looked up, with a gloating light in her eyes. That time I just passed by in a hurry, and there was not much time to stop and play. Oh, so. Audrey did not ask any more questions, and her mood seemed to be pretty good. In order to prevent Audrey from asking such questions again, Hasta asked people to prepare a dinner party, which was regarded as a welcome party for Hugh who came to South Wales for the first time. Others were okay, but Sharon might not be used to such a scene. Hasta even thought of a reason for her to refuse tonight's dinner party in his mind. But today Sharon did not get up and leave. She entered the thoughts in the mirror. Her eyes passed Audrey, and then looked at Furs and Hugh respectively, and then fell on Hasta. This made Hasta, who was chatting with Audrey, feel cold on his back, as if a cold wind was blowing. When Hasta looked back, Sharon was lowering her head slightly, concentrating on combing Azishara's black hair, and occasionally scratching her little head and chin, making Azishara make a comfortable sound. The dinner was not too luxurious, only a few of them, because Sharon did not like too many outsiders to be present, and Hasta did not even invite Alfred who also lived in Pennine Port, only the 5 of them. Hasta sat in the main seat in the middle of the dining table, Audrey and Sharon sat on both sides of him, Furs and Hugh sat on Audrey's side, and Azishara asked for a seat alone and sat next to Sharon, and from time to time she glanced down at Susie who could not sit at the table. Susie also made a few complaints, so Hasta set up a special seat for Susie next to Azishara. Although it looks a bit different, they are all familiar with each other, so it's natural. But Hasta, who was sitting in the middle, was very unnatural. He sat upright and looked at the food in front of him. Audrey and Sharon didn't speak, and he chose to remain silent. Furs and Zio looked at each other and tacitly chose to remain silent and enjoy the food. After the dinner, Hasta led them to visit the garden, and then asked Keys to bring out the cards to fight evil, as well as some board games, such as Monopoly and Winner of Life, which are dice-rolling games, and extraordinary games involving mystical knowledge. This is a casual game specially used to kill time for them. In the end, they unanimously chose to play the game called Winner of Life. This game also determines the grid to move forward by rolling dice. Each grid represents an event that happened on the road of life. From the starting point of birth to the end of life, as long as the corresponding conditions are met, it can be regarded as a winner. Because the name is Life Winner, the way to win is based on the secular definition of life winners. There are 3 ways to win. The first way is to be rich. When you reach the end of your life, you will be settled. As long as the money earned in this life exceeds £10 million, you will win. If there are multiple people who meet the victory conditions at the same time, it depends on who reaches the end of life first. The first person to reach the end of life and earn £10 million will win. The second way is a harmonious and happy family. This includes dating, marriage, childbirth, emotional entanglements, and whether children and grandchildren are filial when you are old. As long as one of them is not met, you cannot win through this way. The third way is the blessing of the gods. A life loved by the gods is undoubtedly a happy winner. It is required that within a game, the blessing of the gods must be obtained no less than 10 times, and there are only 12 grids blessed by the gods in the entire Life Winner grid. In terms of the starting gameplay, it is also different from the general Monopoly game. Players participating in the game need to randomly draw their birth identities first, and then start from different starting points to the end of their lives according to their different initial identities. In order to enrich the game experience, the initial identities of this game have been increased to more than 20, which means that there are more than 20 tracks leading to the big stage of life. After the player draws the initial identity, he starts from his own life track until he has walked 50 grids and becomes an adult at the age of 16, and then he will enter the big stage of life in the middle of the big map to compete in the final life. Because the map of this game is very large, Hasta and others came to a clean empty room on the second floor and spread the map on the floor. It is worth mentioning that this life winner game was adapted from some board games left by Emperor Roussel when the group of life winners of the Yellow Monk were free. It is a special version only for members of the Yellow Monk organization, and it is not available on the market outside. Sometimes, members of the Yellow Monk will also use this game to test who is the lucky one who is most favored by fate. Therefore, they designed the dice to have 21 sides, which further increased the randomness of the game. The luckier the person, the easier it is to win the game. After Hasta introduced the rules of the game in detail, Hugh, who felt that his brain was running out of time, hurried to Furs and carefully read the introduction book with the rules of the game. Audrey and Sharon learned it after listening to it once. Their eyes were already looking at the events recorded on each life grid, and the more they read, the more interested they became. After introducing the rules, Hasta looked at this scene and felt much more comfortable. If he played the game, there should be no embarrassing atmosphere. But this picture, why does it have a strong flavor of Japanese comic scenes? After Hugh and Furs had read the rules of the game, Hasta taught them to try it out to familiarize themselves with the game process, and then started the real game. The initial identity extraction stage. Hasta is the son of a priest. Audrey is the daughter of a great noble. Sharon is the princess of a fallen country. Furs is from an ordinary working family. And Hugh is the daughter of a downtrodden noble. Then throw the dice in order according to the level of the initial identity. In this life winner game, the initial identity is divided into 3 levels. The highest status is related to gods, and there are 3 in total. The son of a priest, the baby gifted by gods, and the illegitimate son of the Pope, purely the bad taste of the Yellow Monks. The second-class status is the class of dignitaries and wealthy businessmen, and Audrey and Sharon's identities belong to this category. The lowest status is ordinary people, abandoned children, and the downtrodden, and Furs and Zio's identities are in this category. According to the rules, the highest status can be thrown 3 times at birth, the second-class status can be thrown twice, and the lowest status can only be thrown once. Although the journey of life is not the faster the better, but at the beginning of the game with a high status, at the stage of heading to the big stage of life at the age of 16, as long as the luck is not too bad, you can accumulate a considerable amount of money, which is very suitable for the way to win the game with money. This is called winning at the starting line, a very real game. Then I'll start first. Hasta began to throw 21 red and black patterned dice, which were 12, 20, and 17 respectively. There is only 1 grid left until he enters the big stage of life at the age of 16. In these 3 events, he received a total of 1 blessing from the gods, a theological foundation, and a charm enhancement. Theological foundation. If there is a grid blessed by the gods in the 21 grids ahead, you can throw it again. Charm enhancement. Increase attraction to the opposite sex, and it is easier to fall in love and get married. Although there is no gold pound reward, such a growing life is very suitable for taking the path of winning by the blessing of the gods. Then it was Audrey's turn to throw the dice twice, 16 points and 18 points, and the 2 things she encountered were 10,000 gold pounds of New Year's money and money favor. The effect of money favor is, the money earned in the future will be multiplied by 1.5 times. Seeing this, Furs and Zio opened their eyes wide and felt incredible. Such a life event is simply a true portrayal of Miss Audrey's life. 10,000 gold pounds of New Year's money, they didn't even dare to dream of such a large amount. When they were young, they felt very happy to have 1 gold pound of New Year's money. When it was Sharon's turn, she rolled 14 and 18 points, and the life events she encountered were, being hunted, having rich life experience, and being given a house worth 2,000 gold pounds. Finally it's my turn. Shu was a little excited. Her life started a little better than Furs. 8 points, she was robbed and lost 100 gold pounds. Haha, Shu, your luck is really bad. You haven't even reached adulthood yet, and you've already lost 100 gold pounds. Furs laughed on the side. Humph, damn guy, if he dared to rob my money in the real world, I would have beaten him up. Shu glared at Furs, who was still laughing. Don't be happy too early, maybe your luck is worse than mine. I'm not as unlucky as you. While Furs was talking, she rolled a 13 point, encountered her parents' divorce, and received a compensation of 100 gold pounds. Alas, these 100 gold pounds are really hot to hold. Furs's face was slightly complicated. Zio just glanced at it and didn't use it to tease Furs. After the initial action, everyone had only one chance to roll the dice. Unless they encountered a special life grid, they could roll 1 or 2 more times. In the second round, Hasta smoothly crossed the 50 life grids and entered the big stage of adulthood at the age of 16. The life event encountered was a life partner. Only by opening this grid can you fall in love, get married and have children, and take the path of family victory. Audrey and Sharon both looked at Hasta at the same time, quickly took it back, and then silently rolled their dice. Adulthood is a hurdle, and crossing it will lead to a different world. When Audrey became an adult, she was given an adult asset worth about 100,000 gold pounds. With the characteristic of being favored by money, her wealth has reached 300,000 gold pounds. Hugh looked at the wealth that still owed him 100 gold pounds and fell into deep thought. Furs's eyes were already full of the image of Miss Audrey. As expected, Miss Audrey was the symbol of the goddess of wealth. Only Audrey's face did not look happy. She looked at the position that had skipped 2 squares, which was the square of life partner. After Audrey, Sharon also became an adult. She successfully threw the dice and landed on that square of life partner. Although there was still no expression on her face, Audrey saw a sparkling look from the depths of her eyes. Hasta's eyes also looked over, and Sharon just lowered her head slightly and calmly stroked Azishara's head, making it impossible to see her thoughts through her facial expression. As the game continued, Zio still lived a life of missing meals. No matter how hard she tried, her total wealth could never exceed 1,000 gold pounds. In comparison, Furs was much luckier, with a total wealth of 15,000 gold pounds. The richest person was naturally Miss Audrey. Her wealth was accumulating more and more, but her life seemed to be only about money. Compared to the 3 of them who were always circling around money, the life stories of Hasta and Sharon were particularly exciting. In the 6th round, Hasta successfully met Sharon, and then the 2 met in adventures, and then successfully became lovers. Faced with such a coincidental life story, Hasta just smiled awkwardly, and Sharon remained silent, but the strength of stroking Azishara's head was particularly gentle and considerate. In the 20th round, Hasta and Sharon successfully entered the marriage hall again, and Audrey was still steadily increasing her wealth. With a total wealth of 5 million gold pounds, only half of the victory conditions were left. Hugh's rough life and Furs's ordinary life are far from any victory conditions. Furs sighed and chose to give up struggling and continue to be a salted fish in life. Anyway, her efforts could not change her fate. But Hugh did not accept her fate at all. She was very serious every time she threw the dice, and even asked for the blessing of the gods in her heart. Unfortunately, her life still did not improve. When Audrey's wealth grew to 8 million gold pounds, Hasta and Sharon successfully gave birth to a pair of twins, and along the way, the family was harmonious and happy, fully meeting the family victory conditions. In addition to this, Hasta also received various blessings from gods along the way. He has received 8 blessings from gods so far, and only 2 more are needed to achieve the victory of the blessing of gods. When Audrey's wealth exceeded 10 million gold pounds, Hasta and Sharon gave birth to another daughter. 18 points. Hasta rolled the dice again, and the life event was being too affectionate with his wife, breaking a bed at night, and reducing wealth by 100 gold pounds. Hasta fell silent, and Sharon glanced at Hasta, as if complaining why he was so hard, and then lowered her head to stroke Azishara's head. Audrey pursed her thin lips, and finally looked up at Hasta. Mr. Hasta's life is really smooth. It's all a game, a game. Hasta just laughed dryly in response. Isn't life a game? Sharon seemed to whisper, and her voice was so low that only Azishara and Audrey could hear it clearly. Audrey trembled slightly, then silently rolled the dice, walked to the end of her life, and became the winner of the first game, but she did not feel happy about it. Although Sharon lost the game, there was no frustration on her face, but the corners of her mouth were slightly raised, and she was in a good mood. As for Zio and Furs, they are the foils in other people's wonderful lives, and they are the supporting roles in life. They can only stand aside silently without saying anything. Congratulations to Miss Audrey for winning this game. She is a real winner in life. Hasta first expressed his blessings to Miss Audrey, and then suggested changing the game. During the game just now, he had a bad premonition several times, and the more he played, the more he felt uneasy. Mr. Hasta, everyone wants to experience a different life, Audrey said lightly. That's right, I don't believe that my life is just a mess. Zio also strongly requested another game. She believed that her next life would never be so unlucky again. Furs had given up struggling. She had seen the end of her fate in this life. No matter how many times she came back, she didn't think her life would be much different. As for becoming a winner in life, she felt that she didn't have that luck. Sharon just stroked Azishara's head calmly and didn't express any opinion. Okay, then play another game. Hasta could only choose to continue a game of life. This time, Hasta is a baby blessed by the gods. Audrey is a princess of the royal family. Sharon is the daughter of a wealthy businessman. Hugh is the illegitimate daughter of a wealthy businessman. And Furs is the only heir to a mysterious family. Hasta still starts with 3 throws while Audrey, Sharon, and Furs start with 2 throws. Only Hugh is of a low status. Hugh was silent for a long time before he said firmly, "A life that is too smooth is meaningless. Only with ups and downs can you achieve brilliance." Yeah, you said it very well. Furs was the first to applaud, and the others also cast a look of approval. Shu was even more silent. When the second game started, Hasta was still the first to become an adult, and the first grid after adulthood was still on the life partner. This time, Hasta was also silent. When it was Audrey's turn, she once again gathered a large amount of wealth, and also missed the grid of life partner after adulthood. Audrey also fell silent. When it was Sharon's turn, she also missed the grid of life partner this time, and like Audrey, she also gathered a large amount of wealth. Sharon was also silent. When it was first turn to throw the dice, the atmosphere around had become particularly heavy, and silence was spreading silently. Furs still chose a salted fish life, lying down all the way, allowing various gods to bless her in turn, and various adventures to add to her. It's just that the atmosphere around her was a little wrong, so she could only remain silent. In the end, Furs, who had been lying flat all the way, completed the conditions for the blessing of the gods and reached the end of his life. He successfully won the second game and became the winner of life. Originally, this was a happy thing, but the atmosphere around him made Furs unable to express her inner joy. She couldn't show off her success to Hugh, who had lost confidence in life. Let's play some other games. Hasta made this suggestion again, but this time, except for Furs, the other 3 people wanted to play another game. Even Sharon took the initiative to express that she wanted to start her life again. Hasta could only start the game in silence. In the third game, Hasta did not get the highest status again. This time, the 5 people drew the second level initial status. Everyone had 2 chances to throw the dice at the beginning. This was the fairest start. Hugh, who had been completely desperate for life, also rekindled his hope in life. This time, the 5 people almost stepped into the big stage of life at the age of 16. Hasta threw into the grid of life partner again when he passed the age of 16. Hasta, who hit this grid 3 times in succession, became even more silent, and Zio and Furs cast curious glances. If they didn't feel that the atmosphere was a little unusual, they couldn't help but want to ask Mr. Hasta why he was so eager for a life partner. What Zio and Furs didn't expect was that Miss Audrey and Miss Sharon also threw the dice into this grid one after another. Why haven't I thrown it once? Zio really wanted to complain. Is she destined to have no chance in this regard? Furs didn't care much about this matter. Compared with calculating the gains and losses in the game, she now pays more attention to Miss Audrey, Mr. Hasta, and Miss Sharon. She always felt that something interesting was happening here, and her mind couldn't help but start to develop various fantasies. This situation made Hasta, Audrey, and Sharon fall into silence at the same time. An invisible pressure made Hasta feel the chill from both sides. Even Azishara and Susie couldn't help shivering, and their hair almost stood up. Every time Furs saw Mr. Hasta, Miss Audrey, and Miss Sharon throwing dice, she was terrified, fearing that some messy entanglements would appear on their life paths again. As the game continued, Hasta's first encounter was given to Sharon, his first love was given to Audrey, his first adventure was given to Sharon, and his first intimate date was given to Audrey. This was thrilling step by step. Even Hugh, who wanted to change the ending of his life, noticed something was wrong. She and Furs glanced at the three people opposite secretly. Mr. Hasta remained silent, Miss Audrey always had an elegant smile on her face, and Miss Sharon was as calm as water, without any emotional fluctuations. They knew that this life game was crucial, and there might be a bloody storm later. Gulu. There was the sound of the dice being thrown and rolling on the ground. The 21-sided dice, each random number facing up, can push life to a new stage. When Asta's dice collided with Sharon again and entered the marriage hall again, the air seemed to stagnate. It was like being shrouded in a thick mud that could not be dissolved. Hugh and Furs said they were trembling. Gulu, it was Audrey's dice thrown. As luck would have it, the number of her dice points just made the chess piece that symbolized her character collide with Asta's chess piece, and then they also entered the marriage hall with Asta. This scene made Hugh and Furs look at Asta in unison. In addition to being shocked, they also admired him deeply. Mr. Asta is worthy of being the winner among life partners. This time, he successfully entered the marriage hall with Miss Sharon and Miss Audrey one after another. Does this mean marrying two people at once? Hasta was silent for a while, then laughed dryly. It's just a game, don't take it so seriously. This game is really interesting, and there is such a way to play it. Hugh and Furs had no intention of participating in this topic. Audrey just glanced at Hasta and then retracted her gaze, stretching out her right foot to gently tease Susie who was lying at her feet. Sharon also cast a look, looked at Hasta meaningfully, then retracted her gaze, lowered her head slightly, and gently scratched Azishara's chin. Seeing that no one responded to his words, Hasta could only choose not to speak anymore, closed his eyes slightly, and pretended that nothing had happened. In the next game, Hasta first gave birth to a boy with Sharon, and then a girl with Audrey. He broke a bed with Sharon and 2 beds with Audrey. He went out on a honeymoon with Sharon and made another baby with Audrey. Asta now threw the dice casually, and even didn't bother to look at what was written on the life grid. Audrey's elegant smile, which had always been on her face, gradually faded. Sharon's eyes, as blue as the deep sea, seemed to be more entangled and shocked. On the other side, Zio and Furs had completely given up this game of life and chose to become spectators. Sometimes they stared at Hasta, sometimes they peeked at Audrey, and sometimes they glanced at Sharon. Although they did not talk about anything in words, the winking movements clearly conveyed their respective psychological activities. The silent atmosphere made the crisp sound of throwing dice become dull. What made people look at each other even more puzzled was that in this round, Hasta, Audrey, and Sharon all met the family victory conditions at the same time. Whoever reached the end of life first would be the winner of this game of life. In the end, Hasta, with the advantage of throwing the dice first, reached the end of life first and became the big winner in this game of life. Hugh and Furs applauded sincerely, saying, "Mr. Asta is indeed a true winner in life. This is just a game, anything can happen, don't make any excessive associations." "Mr. Asta, we are also talking about a game." Hugh finished speaking, and turned to look at Audrey and Sharon. "Miss Audrey, Miss Sharon, what do you think of this life game?" "Too fake." Audrey replied indifferently. Sharon said without raising her head, "Not real." Hugh was very tactful and did not continue to ask, but he was still very curious whether such an answer was the true words of Miss Audrey and Miss Sharon. Asta looked at the time, it was 9:12, it was already late, and it was time to rest early today. As for this life winner game, he didn't want to play it anymore. Audrey, who was also not in the mood to continue playing, got up and said goodbye, and returned to Alfred's villa with Hugh and Furs. There was no one else present. Hasta wanted to talk to Sharon, but found that Sharon had hidden in the mirror again. Only Azishara was lying outside the mirror, pretending to be asleep. Asta, who had a headache playing the game tonight, chose to take a bath early and then go to bed. When Keys came to the room and was about to put away the map of the game, life winner, He found that Mrs. Lisa also appeared here. When did this game map give birth to extraordinary abilities? Just a while ago, after our test. There is no harm. On the contrary, it can make this game affect the change of fate and make it more real. Did the Lord God know about this before playing the game? Yes, it was the Lord God who asked me to bring this game map here. Faced with Mrs. Lisa's question, Keys answered honestly. So that's it. Mrs. Lisa seemed to understand something, and her smile was much kinder. She asked Keys to put away the game map, and she left the room contentedly. Just now, when the God's envoy was playing the game, she had keenly sensed the extraordinary fluctuations here. This extraordinary fluctuation did not come from the game map itself, but from the people participating in the game. Some people used their extraordinary abilities to change the points of the dice unconsciously when throwing the dice, so that their lives could be controlled by themselves and move towards the future of life they wanted accurately. At first, she thought that the person who used extraordinary abilities to change the dice points was Miss Sharon and Miss Audrey, but now it seems that it is not certain. The person who made the move could be one person, or two people, or now it could be three people. Outside Punning Port, the investigators from the Three Gods Church waited day after day, and the latest instructions from Backland were not delivered until the new year was about to come. They were asked to spend a good new year here, and this trip was considered a holiday. What's going on? We have already found out here. Why don't we continue the investigation? Now we give up halfway. So wouldn't we have come here in vain? This is an investigator from the Storm Church. Maybe there are secrets behind it that we don't know. This is a member of the Steam and Machinery Church. Not bad. The New Year's gift sent over. After paying the salary and year-end bonus, there is still a lot of money left to spend a good new year. This is a member of the Night Goddess Church. Did you know something in advance, so this investigation is so careless? Some things are enough to suffer a loss once. If you have to suffer a loss a second time, it's just that your brain is broken. Then what should we do about the pressure from the Lowen royal family? Did they give us money, or can it affect our promotion? Covington too slammed the investigation report from Southwell County on the table with a gloomy face. In the investigation of Earl Hasta Campbell, the investigators of the Three Gods Church have not found the key clues and evidence, and now they have written to him, saying that they want a sum of money for the New Year activities. Such an investigation result can't convince him at all. The death of the two previous and even three Grand Dukes of Southwell is definitely related to Earl Hasta Campbell. After so long, the investigators of the Three Gods Church have not yet found the truth. Is it because their ability is limited, or is there someone behind them who deliberately instructs them to do so? If it is the latter, then he needs to be careful. Recently, the Lowen royal family has taken action against many old nobles, which has caused the Storm Church to be unhappy several times. If the other two gods are angered again, the Augustus family will probably be replaced by other families. No one is better than those high gods at supporting and replacing people. Covington too finally suppressed his anger and approved a sum of money for the investigators of the Three Gods Church who went to South Wiltshire. Originally, he wanted to completely solve the Asta issue before the new year, but now it seems that he must postpone it until after the new year. But he was always afraid that something would change if he was late. The last time, the Skyfire had already made him alert. The only thing that made him feel relieved was that on the front battlefield between the Lowen Kingdom and the Faesac Empire, the Lowen Kingdom's army was advancing triumphantly and had already pushed to the belly of the Faesac Empire. At this rate, the war could be ended in June or July next year. By then, he would become the king with the largest area in the history of the Lowen Kingdom. Covington too, this great name will eventually be written in history. Compared to this, everything else is just a small matter. Half an hour later, Covington too came out of the study and went to the retreat of William I, the ancestor of the Augustus family. The Augustus family needs a true god of their own. George III failed, so the most likely one is William I, the sequence one hand of order. When Covington too left here, he went to handle the government affairs of the Kingdom of Lowen. December 30th, the eve of the new year. An urgent letter from South Wales was delivered to the desk of Covington's study. Just opening it and taking a simple glance, Covington's face changed, and then he handed the letter to other important noble ministers with a cold face. After the ministers delivered the letter, the atmosphere in the entire study was silent and murderous. Govington too rubbed his eyebrows lightly, feeling extremely bad, because there was only a simple sentence in the letter. The warships from the southern continent have arrived in the waters near South Wales. At this time, most of the troops of the Kingdom of Lowen have been deployed to the battlefield of the Faesac Empire and have already penetrated deep into the hinterland. It is difficult for them to return to support in a short period of time. On the other hand, the military power of the coastal defence line in South Wiltshire has always been tightly controlled by Asta, and the relationship between the Lowen royal family and Asta is not friendly. This is definitely very bad news. What do you think we should do now? Govington too threw the question to his newly formed core group of ministers. Several ministers looked at each other for a while, and someone said boldly, "At such a critical moment, everything can only be stable. Since the appointment of Earl Hasta Campbell was to guard the coastal defence line from the beginning, he should be responsible for this matter. What if he chooses to join the southern continent and go to the opposite side of the kingdom because of what happened during this period?" A minister expressed his concerns about this proposal. This is also the problem that Govington too is worried about. The Lowen royal family and Earl Hasta Campbell are only about to tear the last face, and anything can happen. If he completely stands on the side of the southern continent, it may be a good thing, which means that he will be completely abandoned by the gods. Hearing this, Govington's eyes lit up. This statement is indeed very reliable. The so-called war is nothing more than the product of the gods dividing the benefits after the winners and losers. If he can get the support of the three gods' church steadily, what is a southern continent that has just experienced war? Then let him take full responsibility for this matter. Govington too gave his final decision. A minister said uneasily, "But if Earl Hasta Campbell successfully resists the invasion from the southern continent, his prestige will rise greatly, and it will not be so easy to deal with him in the future." Govington too waved his hand and sneered. As long as he is related to the death of the three Grand Dukes of Southwell, there is always a reason to deal with him. This is a righteous handle. As long as it is grasped, no matter how prestigious Asta is in Southwell County, he can be regarded as a traitor. Southwell County, punning port. The warships sailing from the southern continent have appeared within the observable range of the coast of Southwell County, causing panic among the people in the coastal areas. Asta, who controls the coastal defence line of Southwell County, still has the leisure to tease Azishara lying on his thighs, and ordered Keys to decorate the villa here and the castle in the suburbs to welcome the arrival of the new year. Sharon, who knew that the South Continent was preparing to launch a war, finally came out of the mirror. She stood at a distance from Asta, looking at Asta, who had no nervous expression on his face. "Did you expect this?" "Not entirely." Asta looked back at Sharon and said calmly, "It was me who asked the South Continent to send dozens of warships to the coastal waters. This is one of the means to counter the Lowen royal family. As long as there is a possibility of war in the South Continent, whether the Lowen royal family is willing or not, he is the best candidate to be responsible for this defensive war. Any actions against him will be temporarily stopped, so that he can have a good year. Next year is a good new start, and the Lowen kingdom can also change another king." It is said that the son of Govington too, the oldest, is only 12 years old, which is indeed a good choice. Although he doesn't want to be Prime Minister Sao, sometimes, Sao thieves are always better than traitors who are shouted by everyone. If the Church of the Three Gods chose to stand on the side of the Lowen royal family when he was fighting with the Lowen royal family, then he would not have any more concerns and would directly join the southern continent and let the southern continent declare war on the Lowen kingdom. At most, it would be a war of gods. If he counted carefully, it would be quite easy to find the three true gods. The true creator, the original witch, and Grey Carrie. If that didn't work, he would use the Hall of Stars to attract a few former clones of the outer gods of the starry sky, which would be enough to deal with the descent of the true gods such as the goddess of night. But this is the worst-case scenario. Do you want to start a war too? Sharon looked at Asta deeply, as if she had just met Asta again today. Hastur sighed, stood up, let Azishara stay alone, walked to Sharon, and whispered, "I am more out of self-protection. Learn to protect yourself. This is the instinct of every creature." "Just self-protection?" You can also protect other important people and things. Hasta stared at Sharon's blue eyes, and the meaning was self-evident. Sharon just said lightly, "Miss Audrey?" After saying that, without waiting for Hasta to say anything, she suddenly reacted and left with a slightly red cheek. Such a sentence is simply jealousy. Shy Sharon is so cute. Hasta looked at Sharon's back as she left, and felt very comfortable. Sure enough, playing some games to enhance feelings is still useful. In a blink of an eye, the new year is here. South Wiltshire is located on the seaside. Although it is winter now, it is not too cold here, and it is not like Backland where it has already snowed heavily. According to the news from Backland, the temperature this year is several degrees lower than in previous years, and the heavy snow almost buried the entire Backland. In the northernmost Fasak Empire, the snow continued all day long, and the main roads and rivers were blocked by the snow. This forced the Loan army, which was about to push to the capital of the Fasak Empire, to withdraw and wait until the beginning of next spring to continue the attack. A new year without heavy snow always feels like something is missing. Audrey was standing in front of the window sill, pushing open the window and admiring the coastal scenery. Woof! Susie also echoed. This is the first time that I don't have to spend the new year at Backland's house. After becoming an adult, it is indeed a new beginning. Everything becomes different. Audrey was muttering alone. It wasn't until Forsey knocked on the door that she put away her thoughts and walked to the door to open the door. Forsey held a finger-thick manuscript in his hand, coughed slightly and said, "Miss Audrey, this new novel is my New Year's gift to you." M's furs, I also have a New Year's gift for you. Audrey invited Forsey and Zio, who was almost covered up, into the room, and then took out the New Year's gift she had already prepared, a set of earrings that looked valuable. There is also a newly bought necklace, which is Zio's New Year's gift. Zio presented her with a light white scarf that she hand-knitted. It's so beautiful. Audrey liked the gift from Zio very much. This kind of New Year's gift made by friends seemed to make the whole scarf full of life. As long as Miss Audrey likes it. Zio touched her head in embarrassment. She chose to sew the scarf by herself. The most important reason was poverty. She was too embarrassed to give ordinary gifts to Miss Audrey, and she couldn't afford expensive and unique gifts. Especially after playing the game of winning in life, she was not willing to mess with even just 1 penny. Flowers, I am really scared of poverty. After agreeing to go to Hasta's place to celebrate the new year together tonight, Forsey and Zio left first. Audrey put away the book that Forsey sent and put it where Susie couldn't read it to avoid being piqued by Susie. In response, Susie said in a faint tone, "Audrey, how can you guard against me like this?" "No, Susie, I do it for your own good. You really can't read this kind of book. The book says that knowledge is neither good nor bad. The book should also say that when others clearly refuse, they should not make excessive demands." Susie couldn't talk to Audrey, so she could only lie aside silently, looking forward to what New Year's gift Mr. Hasta would give her. At around 6 o'clock in the evening, Audrey and others sat in a carriage and arrived at Asta's villa. Based on the last experience, after the New Year's dinner this time, Asta did not play any games with them, but took them to the beach. At night, scattered stars hang in the black sky, and fireworks that have been arranged on the beach are launched into the sky. The bright fireworks are reflected on the sea, colorful and dazzling. The glorious view of the sea and the sky at the same time is even more breathtaking than exploding in the haze-filled air of Backland. The sea breeze at night carried the dampness and coldness from the sea. Asta and others did not stay long. After the fireworks were set off, they returned to Asta's villa. When Zio proposed to continue playing the last winner's game in life, Audrey and Sharon fell silent. Seeing that the atmosphere was a bit off, Forsey hurriedly changed the subject. "Will the warships from the southern continent really take advantage of our Chinese New Year to attack South Wales?" "Maybe." Hasta did not give an accurate answer. "It's so dangerous here. It's safer to stay in Backland." Zio also realized at this time and hurriedly added. Forsey hit her head hard, and she took a few steps back, covering her head with her hands in pain, with a pitiful and aggrieved look, which made Hasta and the others smile. After the interlude, a few people sat on the open-air balcony on the second floor, overlooking the lively streets of Punning Port during the new year, and looking up at the gradually brightening night sky. Because today is the new year, in order to celebrate, Audrey also drank some wine. Maybe she didn't drink much on weekdays. After a glass of wine, her cheeks became rosy, like her eyes made of gems. At this moment, there was a moment of confusion, shining brightly, like crushed moonlight. But she still had a slight smile on her face, facing the direction of the sea, and whispered, "This life is so good." Audrey, who was a little drunk, her cheeks were flushed, her eyes were as bright as water. She held her chin with one hand and looked at Asta, Forci, and Zio who were drinking. Sharon took a cup of sobering tea and came over, sat next to Audrey, and handed her the sobering tea in her hand. "Thank you." Audrey smiled, took a sip of the sober tea, and suddenly leaned close to Sharon's ear, lowering her voice and asking, "When did Miss Sharon fall in love with Mr. Hastur?" This question made Sharon, who was always calm, look strange, and her cheeks were faintly flushed. But before Sharon could say anything, Audrey closed her eyes, muttered drunken words, and her face showed a drunken posture. Sharon stared at Audrey, trying to figure out whether she was really drunk or pretending to be drunk, whether she was drunk now or just now. In the end, Sharon did not answer this question, but just watched Audrey and the other two leave in silence. Audrey, who got on the carriage, turned sideways and lifted a corner of the carriage curtain, and her cheeks immediately flushed. She didn't know why she suddenly asked such a question. Fortunately, she pretended to be drunk to avoid embarrassment for both parties. The only pity was that Miss Sharon did not answer her question in the end. Late at night, Sharon did not return to the mirror tonight, but stood in front of the window sill, like a puppet, quietly thinking about Audrey's question tonight. On the other side, Hastur took a bath and returned to the room early on the pretext of being drunk tonight. He took out a pocket watch inlaid with an emerald and looked at the time. It was already 11:30. There was only half an hour left until 12 o'clock. There should be enough time. Hastur lay on the bed and fell asleep. He came to the Hall of Stars. He looked down at the stars for a while and then descended on the star container again. During this time, he had let the star container leave the god-forsaken land and return to Lowen, hiding in a place only he knew, waiting for his call at any time. The new year should naturally have a new look. Then, he should also give that Covington too a New Year's gift. Since he is a thief, he is naturally good at killing people in dreams. Backland, Covington II's new palace has been completed. Tonight, he is hosting a banquet for the entire upper-class nobles of Lowen. The lights and the ball are far more luxurious than George III and the world. King Covington II stood on the high platform, with a powerful extraordinary person from the Lowen royal family beside him. He looked down at the Lowen nobles below, and was very satisfied. He asked someone to fill a glass of fine wine for him and drank it all. During the New Year last year, he was also one of the people below for people to admire. Now, he stood on the high platform where only the king could stand, enjoying the most supreme power in the whole Lowen. The entire Lowen kingdom began to move because of his will, except for the restless South Wales County and the Earl Hasta Campbell. Every time he thought of the young Earl, his heart seemed to be shrouded in a layer of haze. No matter how good his original mood was, he would suddenly become worried and panic. When Zerat helped him predict the future, he emphasized to remind him that he must pay special attention to this person. In fact, it also proved that the prophecy given by Zerat was true and credible. He really didn't have any particularly good methods for the Earl Hasta Campbell, and now he needed him to protect the safety of the coast of South Wales. King Covington II was in a bad mood again. He asked someone to pour him another glass of wine, took a sip, left the platform, and returned to the study. He planned to rest for a while, and then when 12 o'clock came, he would come out to give a speech to end the New Year's banquet tonight. Two powerful extraordinary people from the Lowen royal family had been following him closely. There were also 3 bishops from the Three Gods Church nearby. William I's eyes were also on him, and his defense was excellent. King Covington II didn't think that an assassin could come to him alive. He leaned on the sofa cushion and closed his eyes to rest for a while. He had a rare dream tonight. In the dream, he sat on the throne that everyone was paying attention to, surrounded by nobles from the Lowen kingdom and archbishops from the Three Gods Church. He had successfully annexed the entire Faesac Empire and sent troops to continuously conquer the surrounding kingdoms. Even the Republic of Intis was defeated and surrendered in his hands. He unified the entire northern continent and was ready to start building a large number of warships to conquer the southern continent in one fell swoop through war. If successful, he would be the greatest monarch of the northern and southern continents. Even William I, who founded the Kingdom of Lowen, did not have such dazzling achievements as himself. Govington too looked down from above and saw that the annoying Earl Hasta Campbell also appeared in his dream. This cast a layer of haze over his originally good mood. But soon, the corners of his mouth slightly raised. Since he could not solve the problem of Earl Hasta Campbell in the real world, he would cut off his head in the dream world. If he was not satisfied once, he would kill him 10 times or 100 times. He gave an order with a cold face, and the surrounding soldiers gathered and dragged Earl Hasta Campbell out of the crowd of nobles. Someone knelt down to plead for Earl Hasta Campbell. It was Earl Hall. Seeing this, Govington too sneered. Even in the dream, Earl Hall would always protect Earl Hasta Campbell. The feelings were really deep. It seems that the rumors are true. Earl Hall really wants to entrust his daughter, Backland's most dazzling gem, to Hastur. Come forward, executioner, and execute the traitor Earl Hasta Campbell by slow slicing. Covington too gave the order expressionlessly, and then said, anyone who pleads for him will be executed together. When the executioner appeared with a machete, ready to chop him down, Hastur, who was pinned down by the soldiers, suddenly burst into action. He grabbed the sword from the executioner's hand and killed all the soldiers around him. Then, dragging the bloody sword, he walked step by step from the steps to the high platform where Govington too was. Govington too just watched with cold eyes. He was not only surrounded by soldiers, but also by the bishops of the Three Gods Church and the powerful Beyonders from the Lowen royal family. Hasta Campbell, you are indeed the traitor who brought trouble to our kingdom of Lowen. Even in your dreams, you are still full of rebellion. Govington too sneered and continued to watch the melee ahead, watching Hastur become more and more courageous as he fought, blood-stained 5 or 10 steps until the quick kill penetrated in front of him. William I, who had gone into seclusion, appeared out of thin air and stood between Hastur and him. Govington too bowed and saluted William I, and then stepped back a certain distance. The arrival of the ancestor William I was enough to suppress all rebellions. Govington too just glanced at the battle situation and then looked in the direction of the senior officials of the Three Gods Church. Haha, even in a dream, these three gods still won't help him. It's a pity that the Lowen royal family does not have its own true god, otherwise. Govington too did not let himself think anymore. He should do as little as possible to offend the gods, and he should not think too much. He withdrew his eyes and looked at Hastur, who was fighting with William I, and his expression gradually became surprised. Could it be that in his subconscious mind, he thinks that Hastur can be compared with his ancestor William I? No, how come Hastur is still alive, and it seems that he is gradually overpowering his ancestor William I. Govington too couldn't help but start to panic. William I, who was soon forced to retreat by Hastur, retreated in front of him and shouted quickly to leave. He hesitated for a moment, but finally chose to leave here quickly. But the feeling of suffocation in my heart is getting stronger and stronger. This is obviously my dream, but I can't become the master here. Instead, I am still being chased by Hastur. This feeling is really terrible, but he had to escape because he saw his ancestor William I in a state of embarrassment, holding back Hastur for himself. The ancestors also began to lose. Only the gods can save myself at this moment. Govington too looked towards the direction of the higher-ups of the Three Gods Church. Vaguely, he seemed to see 3 illusory and blurry figures standing in midair, overlooking the scene from a high position. Is that the goddess of night, the lord of storms, the god of steam and machinery? He subconsciously wanted to ask the gods for help, but this was his dream. Was he willing to let the gods always be above him in the dream? Govington too gritted his teeth and finally did not choose to bow to the gods. He ran all the way from the throne to the palace corridor and then to the back garden. Suddenly he felt a chill behind him and couldn't help but look back. He saw Hastur, the murderer, chasing after him with a bloody sword in his hand, and he was getting closer and closer. He couldn't escape at all, so he simply stopped, turned around, and looked head-on at Hasta, who was chasing him. I didn't expect that I would be so embarrassed in the dream. Govington II's face was full of unwillingness and resentment. Unfortunately, his clenched fists did not have the power to fight the enemy. When you choose to target me, you should know that you can't escape this day no matter what. Haha, shouldn't you kill him? Do you dare to say that the deaths of the 3 Grand Dukes of Southwell have nothing to do with you? They did all die because of me. Hasta nodded. Ha, then you deserve to die even more. Govington too stood upright like this, trying to die as a king. This is just a dream. He doesn't want to die cowardly in his dream. Even if he dies, he is still the king of the Lowen Kingdom. It's a pity that you died in front of me after all. Hasta raised the big sword with blood on the blade high, and cut it down heavily under the fearful and resentful eyes of Govington too. Bones. Govington II's head fell to the ground, rolling on the ground with blood. His eyes widened and his facial expression was distorted, as if he was extremely unwilling to die. Hasta threw away the big knife in his hand, took out a piece of paper and wiped his hands. He never looked at the 3 illusory and blurry figures in the air, but directly left the dream world of Govington too. Inside the study, the 2 extraordinary people from the Lowen royal family who had been guarding King Govington II suddenly caught a glimpse of King Govington II, who had wanted to take a short rest, and seemed to be fast asleep. When it was close to 12 o'clock, a minister came outside the study to remind King Govington II that he could go to the high platform to make the final closing speech for the New Year's banquet tonight. As the time was approaching 12 o'clock, he could only open his mouth and gently call out to King Govington II, who was lying on the sofa and seemed to be fast asleep. But he did not get any response, as if he had already fallen asleep. At this time, the 2 extraordinary people guarding King Govington II noticed something was wrong, walked up, patted King Govington II's shoulders with their hands, and whispered, "Your Majesty, Your Majesty." But such actions still could not wake up King Govington II. They looked at each other, wondering whether to use more drastic means to wake up the sleeping king. At this time, they smelled a faint smell of blood. The source of the blood was the king of Lowen Kingdom, the conqueror of Fasak Empire, Covington II, who was sleeping on the sofa in front of them. They hurried forward and shook Covington II's shoulders. After a little effort, Covington II's head fell vertically to the ground, rolling several times, and finally his facial features engraved with fear and resentment appeared in everyone's sight. Blood gushed out from the severed head, staining the coffee-colored leather sofa red, and the people around him who couldn't dodge in time. The king of Lowen Kingdom, the conqueror of Fasak Empire, Covington II died in the study under strict defense, just at the beginning of the new year. Panic, fear, disbelief and other complex emotions began to spread, with this small study as the center, gradually spreading outward. Soon, several powerful members of the Lowen royal family arrived here, and the top leaders of the 3 Gods Church who attended the New Year's dinner also came here. They were all extremely shocked by the scene in front of them. They did not notice anyone sneaking in, nor did they hear a cry for help from Covington II. Even the 2 extraordinary people who were protecting him did not notice the slightest abnormality. But the death of Covington II was a real fact. The king should have died in a dream. A powerful extraordinary person assassinated the king in the dream. The injury was mapped from the dream to reality, which led to the scene we see now. An elderly bishop of the goddess of night gave his own guess. But after saying that, he himself doubted the feasibility of this guess. It is indeed possible to kill people through dreams, but how did the murderer get close to Covington II? If the distance between the two is too far, it is basically impossible to kill people through dreams. Not to mention how such extraordinary power fluctuations were concealed from all the extraordinary people present. There are 7 or 8 demigods attending the New Year's Eve dinner tonight, and even the Lowen royal family has a sequenced 2 Earth Angel here. The members of the Lowen royal family who knew the inside story knew that their ancestor William I had always been watching Covington II, so that he would not die inexplicably. But even in such a heavy defense, Covington II still died in such a bizarre way. Moreover, the assassin deliberately chose this time to assassinate, and the new year began with the death of Covington too. Aren't the gods also watching Backland? Haven't they discovered anything? Some people were furious, as if they were losing their minds and accusing the gods of inaction. In response, the top leaders of the three gods' church remained silent and did not make any explanation. They just sneered in their hearts with disdain. He was just a king who had just succeeded to the throne for less than a year. Did he really think he was worthy of the gods' attention? The change of a country was nothing but a trivial matter for the gods, not to mention the death of just one of the kings. Although the members of the Lowen royal family were very angry, they did not dare to say anything too harsh. If the people of the Trinity Church accused them of blasphemy, they would basically have to go down to accompany Covington too. Send someone to invite the ancestors. Prince Grove Augustus secretly sent someone to meet the ancestor William I, wanting to get the truth about Covington II's death tonight from him. He believed that the ancestors would definitely not be unaware of what happened tonight. In the back garden of the New Year's banquet, Earl Hall, who was walking alone, heard a noisy and panicked sound coming from the newly built palace. He just watched quietly for a few seconds and then looked away. If it were in the past, he would definitely rush to the front if something happened. Now, under the suppression of the new king Covington II, he is basically far away from the political center of the Lowen kingdom. If it were not for his many investment projects and the large amount of money he controlled, I am afraid that the Hall family would have been ruined long ago. After a period of understanding and investigation, he also knew the reason why the new king suppressed him like this. In addition to being George III's favorite, there were also reasons for his daughter Audrey and Hastur. Covington too heard rumors from somewhere that Audrey and Hastur would cause unrest in the entire kingdom of Lowen and pull the Augustus family off the throne. In order to protect his daughter, he sent Audrey to South Wales and asked Hastur to take care of her. Even today, during the new year, he did not let Audrey come back, but let her stay in South Wales. It seems that we have to find a time to arrange the marriage between Audrey and Asta, so that I don't have to worry too much. Earl Hall made a decision in his mind and walked for a while before heading towards the noisy area of the new palace. Before he reached the second floor, he heard the news that Covington II was assassinated by an assassin tonight. This frightened him and he hurriedly asked other nearby nobles whether this matter was true or false. When it was confirmed that Covington II was indeed dead, Earl Hall's heart beat suddenly. Could this incident be related to Hastur? Covington II is so obsessed with prophecies, and Hastur is the key to the prophecy. Now that Covington II is dead and Hastur is still alive and well, it is difficult for people not to doubt whether there is something between them. What kind of connection? If this is the case, then the deaths of the first three Grand Dukes of Southwell might have been caused by Hastur. Earl Hall thought this, and the more he thought about it, the more uneasy he became. He firmly believed in Hastur's character, but Hastur like this was too unfamiliar. Soon, members of the Lowen royal family began to evacuate the nobles attending the New Year's banquet tonight, and asked them not to spread chaos when they returned, but to stay at home and wait for the investigation results. Earl Hall quickly left here and returned to his home. Then he came to the study, closed the door, and began to write a letter to be sent to South Wales. Before his letter was written, a butler knocked on the door and said that Archbishop Anthony of the Church of the Night Goddess was visiting. Earl Hall put the letter away before walking out of the study and heading to the lobby on the first floor to meet with Archbishop Anthony, the head of the Backland district of the Night Goddess Church. Happy New Year, Earl Hall. Archbishop Anthony seemed to be in a good mood, and Earl Hall could only respond politely. After Archbishop Anthony took a sip of the Marquis black tea, he faced the curl of tea smoke and said, "I came here tonight just to ask Earl Hall to help me with a message." "What words? To whom?" Earl Hall looked curious. "What happened in Backland tonight is over," Archbishop Anthony said solemnly, and then said with a smile, "As for whom to bring, I believe Earl Hall should know clearly in his heart." Earl Hall remained silent. If he had just speculated that Hastur was related to what happened tonight, now he is convinced. Hastur actually chose New Year's Eve to send people to assassinate the king of Lowen Kingdom, and even attracted the attention of the gods. Has he grown to this point in the mysterious world? Even the gods paid special attention to him. The most important thing for the Loan Kingdom now is to conquer the Fuzak Empire. Other matters can be solved after this matter is completed. Earl Hall frowned slightly and asked, "What else?" Archbishop Anthony didn't say much, just smiled meaningfully, stood up and left. After sending Archbishop Anthony away, Earl Hall went to his study, burned the letter he had originally written, sat at his desk, thought for a while, and then started writing another letter. Fireworks are going off again to celebrate the New Year in Port Punning, South Wales. It feels like celebrating the New Year only when it's 12 o'clock. Asta, who had already fallen asleep, got up again and went to the outdoor balcony, looking at the bright fireworks in the sky and squinting his eyes slightly. Not long after, Sharon also came here. She just stared at Hasta quietly, as if she wanted to see clearly what was thinking in his heart. "The New Year is here again, and I haven't given you a New Year gift yet." Hasta chuckled and said, "Is there anything you want?" "No, really not." Sharon retracted her gaze from Hasta and turned to look at the starry sky that was far brighter than usual. "Sharon, should you give me a New Year's gift too?" "Not prepared. The New Year's gift I want doesn't require preparation in advance." Hasta stood up, walked to Sharon, and looked at her with a slight smile. This time, Sharon was not scared away by Hasta's teasing words. Instead, she raised her eyes slightly, stared at him, and said calmly, "Then what?" Asta was slightly stunned. Sharon, who tried to maintain her stubbornness, was really cute. She seemed to be looking forward to it, but also entangled and timid. Although she tried to pretend to be calm, the sea in her blue eyes had already been spreading with ripples. "Sharon," Asta called softly, and there was a little more ambiguity in the air. Sharon, who was originally planning to hold on, took 2 steps back and said, "I haven't decided what New Year's gift I want yet." After that, she pretended that nothing had happened and left. When she left, Azishara shouted and jumped from the shadow on the beam to Sharon's shoulder. Asta did not chase him, but sat back in his seat, looking up at the starry sky, thinking about what kind of storm his secret action tonight would bring. The process of assassinating Govington II was not complicated. Sequence 2 of a single extraordinary path might be a little difficult, but for him who controls several extraordinary paths and has the corresponding authority, it is basically not difficult without the intervention of the 3 gods. Killing through dreams was a combination of Hasta's own extraordinary abilities and one of the seals he obtained from the Mind Dragon, which completed this assassination at a very long distance. Except for William I, the ancestor of the Augustus family, who caused him a little trouble, the rest were smooth sailing. I think when Govington II's head was cut off, he was probably still thinking that it was just a dream, and dreams are usually the opposite of what happens in the real world. After entering Govington II's dream and assassinating him successfully, he also read part of Govington II's memory. For example, the person who told Govington II the 3 prophecies was Zaratul, who was hiding in the dark. He has gone crazy again recently, and he is very crazy. It is estimated that he saw something he shouldn't have seen. Of course, it is not ruled out that he is pretending. In addition to this, he also saw a little secret about the fall of George III. Unfortunately, Covington II only knew that there was a problem, but he didn't know where the problem was. The only thing that made Hasta more concerned tonight was the indulgence of the 3 gods towards him. The 3 gods did not descend, but they vaguely knew what happened in Backland, but they still sat back and let him assassinate Covington II. In addition to not wanting to be hostile to the stars, it is probably because Covington II has been making frequent moves recently, which has annoyed them. For the goddess of night, conquering the Fuzak Empire is the most important thing. For the Lord of Storms, Covington II's attack on the old nobles is a slap in his face. The god of steam and machinery doesn't care, but his presence has always been the weakest. The Augustus family's territory is still there, and the death of Covington II will not cause too much panic. It can also effectively warn the people of the Augustus family to always maintain awe of the gods. In this case, it is normal for the 3 gods to make such a choice. Hasta thought about various possibilities to prevent himself from missing any important tips. Outside Punning Harbor, the investigators of the Tri-God Church were the first to receive news from Backland. Govington II has fallen, tonight, just before the stroke of 12. The cause of death is unknown, and even the murderer is unknown. This heavy news cast a shadow over the hearts of the investigators who were celebrating the new year. They had just received a New Year's holiday allowance approved by Govington too. The church wants us to return to Backland and take charge of other matters. We are the same. It seems that the church should know the secret of this matter. The three heads of the Tri-God Church discussed and decided to return to Backland in 2 days. Before returning, they still needed to meet the Earl Hasta Campbell according to the arrangement of the church, and then end this trip to South Wales. January 1st, the day when everything revives in the new year. Backland is shrouded in a thick haze, which makes it difficult for everyone to breathe. The death of Covington II could not be concealed after all. Overnight, the news of Covington II's death occupied a large page in all major newspapers. With the leak of newspapers and the promotion of the topic, the streets and alleys of Backland today are talking about this topic. In particular, the former king of the Kingdom of Lowen was also assassinated, and the assassin has not been caught until now. Now Covington II has followed in his father's footsteps and is heading for death. This makes many people feel insecure. Even the king can be assassinated one after another, and the assassin has not been caught. Is it that the assassin is too powerful, or the guards are too incompetent? Can such a Lowen royal family really lead the Lowen kingdom to prosperity? Not long after, members of the Lowen royal family came forward and defined the assassination as a conspiracy between the Faysac Empire and the Aurora Society. While expressing deep grief, it aroused people's disgust with the Faysac Empire in order to prepare for the complete conquest of the Faysac Empire in the spring. In this regard, the Three Gods Church stood together with the Lowen royal family, and put all the blame on the Faysac Empire and the Aurora Society. Anyway, they had so many crimes, so it didn't matter if they added one more. Many Lowen royal family members came to William I's retreat today, led by Grove Augustus. I know why you came, but you are not allowed to know this. William I directly blocked the question they wanted to ask, and then said, "Let the eldest son of King Covington II succeed to the throne, and you will assist him on the side. In the future, you will devote yourself to conquering the Faysac Empire and do less other things." Grove paused when he heard this, and said with a bitter smile on his face, "Ancestor, do we, the Augustus family, have to swallow our anger?" Augustus family. William I said it twice, and then said coldly, "Have you ever seen a family that can always be prosperous?" Grove's heart trembled suddenly. Does this mean that their Augustus family is now on the decline? Go back, deal with what should be done quickly, and don't touch what shouldn't be done. After saying this, William I closed his eyes and asked people to see the guests off. He sighed only after all the visitors left. The reason why the Augustus family stood out in history and became the rulers of the Kingdom of Lowen was because the gods chose them. Now, the gods' eyes have left them and are on others. Even if he is unwilling, he knows that as long as no one in the Augustus family becomes a god, then the Augustus family will always be a dispensable pawn in the hands of the gods. Such things are not uncommon throughout history. The only difference is that as long as he is not dead, the Augustus family will not be completely exterminated. But it would be difficult to maintain the glory of the past. On the afternoon of January 1st, Klein held the first tarot club of the new year. When Miss Justice finished the first greeting of the new year, Mr. Fool finished reading Russell's diary. Oh, no one handed in Russell's diary this week. When the free exchange session began, the hanged man Alger spoke first, and said in a heavy tone, "Recently, another big thing happened in Backland. Covington II was stabbed to death last night, just before the clock struck 12. Yes, this matter has spread all over Backland now. Some people say that Covington II offended the gods, so he was punished by the gods." Emlyn also added in coordination with Alger. Audrey and Furs were shocked. They had invited Hugh to go out and enjoy the New Year's scenery of Southwell this morning. Unexpectedly, Backland caused such a big thing without making any noise. A king died under the assassination of a killer when crossing the new year. For Covington II, this has to be said to be a kind of irony. After he came to power, he has been committed to clearing the power of the old nobles. Unexpectedly, he himself became the garbage that was swept away in the end. Klein was also surprised, although the way he spent the new year was just drinking alone in a coastal tavern. Furs asked, have you found out who assassinated Govington too? According to the Lowen royal family themselves, it was the Faesac Empire and the Aurora Society that did it, and a member of the Aurora Society has already come forward to take responsibility for this matter. Alger shared the inside information he heard from the Storm Church. First side, the Aurora Society, it's them again, they even dared to assassinate the king. Maybe it's not them, they just simply want the reputation generated by this incident. The worse the reputation, the more conducive it is for them to recruit new members. Alger said, looking at Miss Justice. He wanted to know if the upper class of Lowen knew some different inside stories. Audrey pondered for a while and said to Alger's expectant eyes, if the king of Lowen Kingdom was so easy to assassinate, Backland would not be a forbidden area for extraordinary people. Alger's eyes showed such an expression. In fact, Audrey simply did not believe that the members of the Aurora Society would assassinate Covington too. In her heart, she thought that this should be a divine punishment, which was related to the previous incident of the Skyfire. Covington too angered the gods, so he was assassinated in Backland. Otherwise, under the watchful eyes of the gods, even an angel would find it difficult to assassinate the king of a country. Maybe it was the work of the stars again, Emmeline added silently. Furs wanted to refute him, don't bring everything to the stars. What is there about Covington too that is worthy of the stars' attention? But she didn't speak, thinking that she would ask Mr. Hastur after returning. The work of the stars, Klein also thought for a while, and he also tended to think that this matter might be done by the believers of the stars, without any reason, just a hunch. A big thing happened on the sea recently. The one who changed the subject was the world. Alger looked at him curiously. Could anything happen on the sea recently that was bigger than the assassination of the king of Lowen Kingdom? Facing everyone's gaze, the world said expressionlessly, there is another mysterious treasure legend on the sea. It is said that someone landed on an undiscovered island, where he saw a huge black mausoleum. When Alger heard the first half of the sentence, his expression almost froze on his face. He held in his hand a primitive island that had not been discovered by anyone. This was his biggest secret. He felt relieved when he heard the second half of the sentence. He was sure that there was no conspicuous black mausoleum on the island. Mr. World was so well informed about the intelligence on the sea that he knew the news on the sea earlier than I did. Alger felt a sense of crisis in his heart. The sea was the most important point for him to gain a foothold in the Tarot Club. Now the overall strength of the Tarot Club members has caught up, especially Miss Justice. Before she entered the mysterious world, she was already a Sequence 8 angry people. But under the pursuit of Miss Justice's gold pound power, he is now at the same level as her at Sequence 6. He even thinks that Miss Justice will be promoted to Sequence 5 earlier than him. This sense of urgency forced him to seize the time to become stronger every moment. Now, even his key position on the sea will be replaced by the world. In this way, his first line position in the Tarot Club will be replaced, and he will become a second line member like Miss Magician and Little Sun. He will never allow this to happen. After returning, he will investigate this matter carefully. Mr. Fool, who had been sitting in the first seat and had not spoken, suddenly chuckled and said, the huge black mausoleum, the last mausoleum left by the original Roussel, is on the sea. The last mausoleum left by Roussel has been discovered? The members of the Tarot Club were shocked. Compared with the death of Covington II, the legendary figure of Emperor Roussel is much more valuable. They were not surprised that Mr. Fool knew about this. Among the beings they knew, only Mr. Fool could read the contents of Roussel's diary without any obstacles. Someone is spreading this news wantonly, as if he wants everyone on the sea to find this mysterious island. There must be an ulterior motive in it, the world added. This is why Klein told this secret in public. On the sea, someone is spreading this news everywhere. Although he intercepted and killed a group of people, there are still many people hiding in the dark and spreading it everywhere. The mastermind behind the scenes obviously wanted to use the secret mausoleum of the great Roussel as bait to fish for the greedy fish. As Roussel's fellow countryman, he didn't want too many ambitious people to disturb the peace of Roussel's death. But now, he could only understand this matter first and then contact Bernadette. He had a hunch that perhaps Bernadette was the big fish that the mastermind wanted to fish for. For this reason, he had also written to Bernadette and told her about the possible conspiracy. The last mausoleum of the Great Roussel, if Mr. Austen knew about it, he would definitely be very happy. This was the first thought that came to Audrey's mind. After reacting, her face flushed slightly. She found that since she met Miss Sharon, she often thought of Mr. Austen. Obviously, he and he were just friends, well, just friends. After I go back, I will also do my best to investigate this matter. Alger showed his dominance over the sea at the right time, so as not to be deprived of his own light by the world. After the Tarot Club, Audrey stood in front of the window, looking at the direction of the sea. She also wanted to go to the sea to see what the real mysterious world looked like, especially the mysterious treasure legends on the sea, which always made people excited. How should I tell Mr. Austen this news? While Audrey was still thinking, Furs on the other side had already seized the time to report this matter to the stars. At the same time, she also summoned the messenger of the sage to tell Bernadette about this matter. After finishing all this, she came out of the room. Seeing that she had slept for so long in a nap, Hugh, who had always wanted to go out for fun, couldn't help but look her up and down. "You didn't drink much last night. Why are you so sleepy today?" "This is called delayed alcohol syndrome," Furs explained seriously. "Wait, what do you mean by alcohol syndrome?" Hugh looked puzzled. "Usually, I told you to read more books, but you just didn't read them, so you don't understand so much." This sentence was heard by Susie, who was passing by, and she barked to show her agreement, and then quietly passed by. "Look, even Susie is laughing at you for not studying." Shu was stunned, too lazy to talk to Furs about these things, and took Furs out to go shopping. Before leaving, they passed by Audrey's room and found that Audrey was still taking a nap. Shu muttered softly, "Miss Audrey seemed very worried last night, and drank a lot of wine." "You are the only one who talks too much." Furs knocked on Shu's head and led her away. January 4th. The cold wind of Backland finally blew to Southwell County, and the strange death of Covington II had spread throughout the Kingdom of Lowen. The Lowen royal family has begun to prepare for the state funeral, and the next king of the Lowen kingdom will be announced after the funeral. Hasta had no idea about attending the funeral of Covington II. He was currently only interested in the last mausoleum of Roussel. According to Furs and Audrey, the person who secretly spread this matter on the sea was most likely instructed by the fallen mother goddess, or it could be Roussel, who was thinking of action after being quiet for a long time. The purpose of the fallen mother goddess is easy to guess, but if it is Roussel, then this matter is intriguing. After thinking for a long time, Hasta decided to take Audrey, who was eager for extraordinary adventure, to sea. Only by understanding this matter personally, he could make a decision. Hearing about the adventure, Furs directly said that he still needed to stay at home to write, and as for the adventure, it was better to leave it to Hugh. Hugh hesitated for a while and agreed to follow Audrey to sea. There are many pirates on the sea who have bounties. If she meets one or two, she can also share a lot of money with Mr. Hasta, so that she will have money to buy extraordinary materials and potion formulas in the future. Susie naturally followed Audrey. Azishara clearly stated that she hated water, and Sharon wanted to hurry up to complete the last puppet performance. She didn't want to go to sea at this time. The adventure, by the way, she could stay at home to take care of Azishara. In addition to Audrey, Susie, and Hugh, Hasta also selected 2 Sequence 4 demigods from the Yellow Monk organization. One is a chef holding a butcher knife, and the other is a maid who is responsible for sweeping the floor in the castle. Now he is no longer as wary of the Yellow Monk organization as he was at the beginning. He himself is a Sequence 4 demigod, and with his special characteristics, he can easily suppress these 2 demigods from the Yellow Monk organization. After 2 days of preparation, Hasta finished the trivial matters and led everyone to sea in the early morning of January 6. In order to prevent accidents, Hasta secretly arranged the star container on the ship. The morning sun shone, Sharon stood in front of the window, looking at the ships going out to sea in the distance, and Azishara nestled in her arms obediently. "Miss Sharon, why don't you go to sea with the master?" "Miss Audrey is with the master." Azishara, lying in Sharon's arms, made a crisp voice like a child. Sharon tapped Azishara's nose gently. "I need to think about it." "What do you think about?" "Think about when to tell your master that you can talk." "Meow." Azishara's hair stood on end, and she didn't dare to say anything for a while. She also wanted to talk to her master, but her voice was too immature, like a child. She should wait a few more years. I wish she could speak as sweetly as Miss Audrey. Audrey, who was going out to sea for the first time, was obviously very excited about everything in the sea. Standing at the bow, watching the unknown fish jumping out of the sea from time to time, she always made one or two exclamations. Shu wanted to pretend to be a mature, stable and knowledgeable adventurer, but she got seasick on the first day on board. Her already small and thin body seemed to shrink even more. It was not until the third day of the sea that she gradually overcame the symptoms of seasickness. Susie stared at everything in the sea with curiosity, matching what she saw and heard with the knowledge she had learned. For this reason, Hester specially gave her a pair of glasses with a scholarly atmosphere. The ship went all the way to the depths of the sea. With the Black Emperor card and Hester's own luck, as long as there was something wrong with the island where Rissel's mausoleum was located, it would be able to successfully merge with it by just letting the tide drift. Compared to this, Hester was more concerned about Bernadette's situation. No matter who caused this undercurrent in the sea, she was the key figure. Bernadette was a confident and arrogant person in her bones. She would not pray to the stars when she encountered something like First did. Only when she encountered real danger or was undecided would she ask for the help of the stars. At night, Hester entered the Hall of Stars through dreams. His eyes first swept over the fallen Mother Goddess and Bernadette. When he found nothing unusual, he descended on the stars container. Hester had not yet completed the role of the lost person in the Stars Path Sequence 4. But he had already figured out how to play the role effectively, and the stars container was his best choice. The stars container was empty when looking forward and empty when looking back. He was just an empty shell, a real lost person. When Hester chooses to seal his memory for a certain period of time, the star container is the most suitable role for the lost people. The people on the boat have fallen asleep. Even the cooks and maids from the Yellow Monks still can't detect the signs of the star container's activities. Even if they really notice it, they will choose to remain silent. Because the star container is the messenger of God believed by the Yellow Monks organization, and even the incarnation of the Yellow Lord. After entering the star container, Hester temporarily sealed his memory to avoid affecting the star container's role as the lost people. Far away from the seaside, coming to the strange port on the coast, the star container without memory walked aimlessly on the street, his eyes wandering, looking at the strange things in front of him. He was very interested in the people and things that appeared in front of him, but after looking at it for a while, he lost interest, as if there was some kind of isolation between this world and him, or it should be said that his subconscious kept a distance from all this. Because it was too fragile. Yes, everything he saw was too fragile. He only needed to blow a breath, and they would all turn into ashes and ruins in front of him. Even if he was just quietly passing by the street here, he would try to keep a certain distance from the people around him. His behavior seemed very strange in the crowd. Facing the gazes cast at him, he did not care. His eyes were just calm and distant as he looked at everything in front of him. "Sir, do you want to buy a book? We have all kinds of books that you would never expect, and there are also beautiful illustrations." A young man who was only as tall as his shoulders raised his head, revealing his nose with a little freckles, and was carefully and mysteriously introducing his business to him. "You can take a look first and then decide whether to buy one." The young man lifted a corner of the wide windbreaker he was wearing, and saw that there were 20 pockets sewn inside the grayish-white windbreaker, and each pocket contained 2 or 3 books. Most of the book covers were pictures of naked men and women having sex, and some were pictures of bound female vampires, hung female elves, and even some pictures of animals and people. Under the dim light, these cover pictures seemed to have a different charm, as if they were about to walk out of the pictures. He just calmly scanned the cover of each book, without showing any interest in his eyes. The young man seemed to have noticed this. He put down this corner of the windbreaker, and lifted up the left corner of the windbreaker, which still had pockets on it, and there were still books in the pockets. Unlike before, the covers of these books were no longer white tender pieces of meat made of naked men and women and other strange creatures. Weird, gloomy, and curious were the unified styles of these covers, with castles located in the moonlight, a half-bitten heart, predators hidden in dark corners, and scenes of people feasting on corpses. He looked at it carefully for a while, stretched out his right index finger and pointed at one of the books, which also had its own special cover. It was a figure wearing a ragged yellow robe under the shining starlight, tightly wrapped himself, facing all the watchers with only his back. At just one glance, he liked the ragged yellow robe on the cover of this book, and he seemed to be lacking such a suitable piece of clothing. "Sir, you have a good eye. This book, Child of the Stars, is one of the most popular banned books recently." The young man smiled, then stretched out 5 fingers on his palm and gestured. "Now the price is only 5 solely. If you buy it from other channels, this book can be sold for up to 2 gold pounds. 5 solely? 2 gold pounds? This should be the currency that needs to be paid when buying things in this world? But he doesn't have such a thing, but he doesn't lack this currency because there are a lot of currencies here." His left hand simply clenched, and 2 shiny gold pounds appeared in his palm. He handed the money to the young man, and the young man also took the book and put it in his hand. "Sir, are these 2 gold pounds for me? You are really the most generous gentleman I have ever seen." The young man saw the 2 shiny gold pounds lying in his palm. His eyes widened, and he couldn't believe that he could meet such a generous buyer. "Sir, happy transaction." The young man quickly closed his 5 fingers and clenched them, fearing that the generous gentleman in front of him would regret it at the last minute and take the money back. "Sir, your generosity will surely bring you the luck that matches it." The young man closed his windbreaker, took 2 steps away, turned around and saluted, then hummed a little song and left happily. He was not happy because of the other party's gratitude. The 2 gold pounds just now were just casually taken out from the coat pocket of a nearby person. If the young man wants to thank someone, he should thank the wealthy passerby. Child of the Stars has a black cover. The figure on the cover looks more mysterious and difficult to peek into than before. On that figure, he seems to see a place where he can overlap with himself. After staring for a long time, he opened the novel called Child of the Stars, Under the Moonlight. The novel describes an indescribable person who travels in the human world. He is the master of the sea of stars in the distant starry sky. He is the king of yellow clothes. He habitually wears a ragged yellow dress. In the middle of the night, under the starry sky, he appears randomly without purpose in front of the lucky person who has the opportunity to meet him. Sometimes he generously rewards everyone who meets him, and satisfies their deepest desires with his authority that is difficult to detect. Sometimes he will play a game with the other party, a game where one can bet money, honor, life, or even anything that can be betted. As long as he recognizes the value of the bet, it is a fair game. The game is a winner takes all game, and he has always been a winner. Readers who have read this far, I give you a sincere suggestion. When you meet a stranger in ragged yellow clothes under the starry sky, leave quickly. No matter what bet he uses to tempt you, you cannot accept this game, otherwise you will lose even your soul, and then be discarded by him at will. This is the original words in the record book, a warning to those who come later. Sometimes he will also punish without any purpose. The cause may be just because a tree on the side of the road is not beautiful, or someone in the crowd may have looked at him more. His mood, his joy and anger, have never had a standard. He just follows his heart. He will not be happy because of anyone's praise. No matter how beautiful things are, they are just dust that can be destroyed at any time in his eyes. After reading the whole Child of the Star, silently, his eyes fell on the cover of the book again. It was the same back figure, but the feeling he gave him was very different from before. He seemed to really see a king in yellow coming down from the starry sky and then walking in the world. Fitz Port, a very ordinary coastal port. Everything here is very ordinary. There is no prosperous business, no special seafood. Even the pirates rampant around here are very ordinary. Philip, a very ordinary dock worker, has an average family background and looks very ordinary. No matter from which aspect, he has no outstanding features. Even his dream is very ordinary. He just wanted to go to Backland, the city of hope, to see if the girls there were like the wandering poets, with a voice as melodious as a lark, a gorgeous dance that could make a peacock spread its tail, skin that was softer to touch than tofu, and a head of golden hair that even the sun would envy. But until now, he had not saved enough to leave the port and buy a ticket to the kingdom of Loan. Tonight was a rare extraordinary time in his ordinary life. Well, he won a big prize at the Old Henry Tavern, and he could drink for free, unlimited, and unlimited. Although his alcohol tolerance was also average, he still insisted on drinking from 6 o'clock in the evening until 3 o'clock in the morning, until he could no longer drink. Staggering on the street, Philip hummed a few happy tunes, and every time he saw the stinky face of old Henry because he drank one more glass of wine, he couldn't help but drink another glass. Then as old Henry's face became more and more stinky, he drank more glasses of wine. Who made old Henry deliberately find excuses to deduct his wages and humiliate him when he worked in old Henry's house before. Crescent moon, round head, small man, shining long knife, stabbing and stabbing at the small man's round head, under the gaze of the crescent moon. Philip hummed a tune, swaying his body, and walked on the deserted street. Suddenly, he looked again and again, and finally saw the figure that suddenly appeared in front of him. It was a figure wearing ragged yellow clothes, and the clothes seemed to be completely integrated with his body. No matter how he looked at it, he could not see the specific appearance of the figure through the ragged yellow clothes. The more he looked at it, the more blurred the figure became. It gave people the feeling of early morning fog, as if it could be seen clearly, but it could not be seen clearly. A strange man appeared late at night. Philip thought so, and planned to go around it to avoid any accidents. But the figure just stood in front of him, and no matter how he wanted to pass by, he couldn't help but approach him step by step. Philip felt a strong sense of uneasiness and panic in his heart. Finally, he turned around, turned his back to the ragged yellow figure, and began to run away, like a ship about to capsize and fleeing from a whirlpool on the sea. But as he ran, the ragged yellow figure whose face he couldn't see clearly appeared in front of him. He turned around again and started running in the opposite direction, but he couldn't escape from here. Finally, he lost all his strength and fell to the ground. The ragged yellow figure in front of him gradually grew larger in his field of vision and occupied all his sight. "Do you have any wishes?" Quote. The emotion that was so indifferent that there was no trace of it was more solemn and moving than the withered late autumn. Philip didn't know what emotion he should use to face the scene in front of him. Obviously, his heart was full of fear, but after this question, he had a little hope in his heart. Maybe this mysterious person in front of him can really realize his wishes hidden deep in his heart. Yes, even if this scene is a bit weird. But in some ancient stories, there are always some mysterious beings that can satisfy people's meager wishes. For example, gods walking in the world. As for whether the being in front of him was the legendary god, Philip was not sure, but he still had some inexplicable expectations in his heart. "Yes, I want to go to Backland." Philip still stuttered out his wish. Backland. As if it was a whisper, Philip felt that the space around him changed. He seemed to see himself leaving the port where he had lived for more than 20 years and flying in a strange and bizarre world. He clearly saw himself flying up, as if he had entered a colorful bubble. The outside world passed by him at a high speed and disappeared like flying. Did he really follow this yellow figure to Backland? The hope in Philip's heart gradually overwhelmed his fear, and he began to observe everything in front of him carefully. This world is not a fairy tale at all. Instead, it is full of desolation and ruin. It gives people the same feeling as the dilapidated house at the foot of the mountain in the port that has been uninhabited for a long time. No, it is far more terrifying and terrible than that kind of dilapidated house that no one lives in. Just now, a hideous and indescribable creature flashed before his eyes. He could only vaguely see that it was a bloated cow with mouthparts all over its body, but it was covered with black hair. When he looked back, the body of the horrible creature was torn into pieces, and dark and slippery tentacles grew out of the broken parts. Did this mysterious person do it? Philip had some guesses in his mind, and he didn't dare to look around for a while, until the world in front of him suddenly changed, and he looked back at the front again. Under the bright starry sky, the crimson moon had disappeared, and only the stars dropped a ray of starlight, illuminating the dark world. He saw the big houses in the bard's story, the black chimneys rising from the ground, the brightly lit streets, the station at night as busy as during the day, and the steam train that did not need people as power. Is this Backland? He really came to this dreamy city. Philip was so infatuated with everything in front of him that he forgot about the ragged yellow-clothed man standing beside him. It was not until a long time later that he noticed that this mysterious person was also looking at Backland, but he could not see the specific emotions in his eyes from his blurred face. Thank you for fulfilling my tiny wish. Although he was still very scared, Philip saluted the other party seriously. Your wish has been fulfilled. Yes, I have always dreamed of coming to Backland. Philip's eyes brightened instantly when he mentioned this. You need to pay a certain amount for this reward. Philip was stunned for a moment, and then a cold fear spread from his heart to all parts of his body. He subconsciously stepped back, fearing that the other party would take away his life or soul. In the ancient stories he heard, in addition to the gods who would satisfy people's meager wishes, there were also demons who were thirsty for souls and would take the initiative to help you fulfill your wishes. When you are happiest, take away your soul, and from then on, you will be enslaved by the devil forever, and your life will be worse than death. I want your story. Story. Philip couldn't fully understand the meaning of this sentence, but the tension and fear in his heart eased. The story you have experienced. Don't you have your own story? Philip asked this question with courage. In the breeze of the late night, the ragged yellow clothes still fit tightly, without shaking at all because of the wind. Yes, this is my story. The indifferent and emotionless voice made Philip startled again, but he couldn't say anything anymore. The other party seemed to have taken something out of his mind, and then disappeared from his face. Who am I? Why am I here? What should I do? Where should I travel? Is that city in the distance my hometown? Philip frowned, trying desperately to search for the treasure that had been plundered from his empty head. He forgot a lot of things, including his own name. The only thing he could remember was some common sense about this world, such as stones cannot be eaten, money can be used to buy things, etc. After standing there stupidly for a long time, he walked towards the metropolis not far away. When he arrived at the city gate, he felt timid for a moment, but he finally walked in and walked on the street with few people. He looked at everything here curiously, very familiar and strange. He looked at this new world with curiosity and timidity. Suddenly, a young man came over, raised his head, showed his freckled nose, and introduced his business to him carefully and mysteriously. Sir, do you want to buy a book? We have all kinds of books that you can't imagine, and there are beautiful illustrations. While the young man was talking, he used his body to block the gazes of others and lifted a corner of his windbreaker. Inside the gray-white windbreaker, there were 20 pockets sewn, and each pocket contained 2 or 3 books. Most of the book covers were pictures of naked men and women having sex, and some were pictures of tied female vampires, hung female elves, and even some pictures of animals and people. I have no interest in these books. You should find a more suitable buyer for them. Philip declined the deal politely. Sir, don't worry. I also have some collector's edition books here. They are the best ones I have sold recently. The young man turned around and lifted up the other side of his windbreaker, revealing a pocket that was also filled with books. Philip looked at it twice, and his eyes fell on one of the books called Children of the Stars. What he valued was not the content of the book, but the illustration on the cover. The figure in ragged yellow clothes made him feel very familiar, and he should have known him before. How much does it cost? Philip looked at it for a while and decided to buy the book. 5 solely, this price is absolutely fair. It can be sold for as high as 2 gold pounds elsewhere. Philip searched his pockets for a while, and pulled out 5 crumpled 1 soul banknotes with a slight smell of sea. Sir, this is your book, be sure not to lose it. The young man took the 5 1 solers handed over by Philip, took out the book, Children of the Star, from his coat pocket and placed it on Philip's palm. Philip took the book in a daze. Although he had lost his past memory, he still knew that 5 souls was a considerable fortune. Why would he use such a sum of money to buy a book? Sir, I hope you will never get lost again under the starlight. After the young man finished speaking with a smile, he hummed a little tune and disappeared into the dark night. Philip vaguely heard the song sung by the young man, the crescent moon, the round head, the little man, the shining long knife, piercing the little man's round head, in the crescent under the gaze of the moon. Philip was stunned in place. This song was also very familiar to him and he couldn't help but hum along softly. The round moon, the little man, the long curved knife, the shining head, stabbing and piercing the little man's curved knife, under the smile of the round moon. After humming, he was stunned again. How could he remember such a song? He lowered his head and looked at the "Children of the Stars" in his hand. The figure in ragged yellow clothes on the cover seemed to be slowly born from the starlight, and then came to him. It wasn't until he blinked once that he realized that everything in front of him was just an illusion. He was still standing on the sparsely populated street, and the figure in ragged yellow clothes still blended into the cover of the book. The sea looks particularly charming against the sky full of stars. Wisps of starlight fall from the sky and slip back from the sea back to the sky. On the dawn, Bernadette was looking at the ink-like sea in the distance. The wishing lamp sits quietly on the table, and next to it is a sea lantern that emits dim light. This is definitely a trap, and you are the big fish he wants to catch. The genie said, and then mocked. There is no luck in front of the fallen mother goddess, the only choice is death. Don't let your emotions overwhelm you. Above your sanity. Not the right time yet. Bernadette seemed to be talking to herself or to the jinn. If you want to fight against the fallen mother goddess, it will only be possible when the stars have recovered to a certain extent. Currently, he will not directly confront the fallen mother goddess for you. You seem to be afraid of the fallen mother goddess. Bernadette seemed to be deliberately provocative. Oh, your courage shows your ignorance. The jinn was not angry at all. Your patience is much better than before. This time the jinn didn't answer. His patience was honed little by little in the Hall of Stars. None of these guys, including the Superstar Master, the high-dimensional Overlooker, and the original Hunger, could deal with him, so that he became more and more pleased with the Mother Tree of Desire. Bernadette was not interested in continuing to speak. She still wanted to find the island where her father was, but not to save her father, but to prevent others from landing on the island and prevent pollution from spreading with the people who landed on the island. I believe that the current Laotian church thinks the same way. As for how to find the island, she already had an idea in her mind. Maybe she doesn't need to take the initiative to look for it, someone will naturally pass the information she wants to her. Before the sky lit up, Catalya's spiritual messenger sent her the news she wanted. Tisk, someone is eager to lure you to that island. It's just such an obvious trick. The fallen mother goddess really doesn't have much IQ left. The jinn on the side saw Bernadette starting to read the letter and couldn't help but make a mocking sound. Bernadette ignored the lamp god's ridicule of the fallen mother goddess, but just calmly looked at the letter sent by Catalya. In this letter, Catalya mentioned that someone suspected that someone had found the island where the Black Mausoleum stood, and was asking her if she wanted to go and see it together. After reading the letter, Bernadette pondered for a moment before coming to the desk to write a reply to Catalya. She wanted to transfer Catalya away from that sea area and let her return to the sea area between the Kingdom of Loan and the South Continent to avoid this incident. Although she knew that Catalya would be silent and resist for this, she would eventually obey her orders. Tisk, you are so cruel. Obviously that little girl is thinking about you wholeheartedly and running for what you want to do. The lamp god came over and said one or two words of regret. Bernadette ignored it. In her opinion, freedom and life are far more important than loyalty. When the letter was finished, Bernadette asked Catalya's spiritual messenger to take the letter back, then walked out of the captain's room and ordered the second mate to drive the dawn to the sea area Catalya mentioned. The dawn light gradually brewed in the depths of the sea, then eroded the blue sea bit by bit, dyeing it golden, and finally left the sea surface and became high above. When Catalya on the future silently read the reply from the mysterious queen, the world that had just brightened in front of her dimmed again. But this time she did not strongly protest her dissatisfaction to the queen, but silently followed the queen's will to leave here and return to a safer sea. It was just that she had a strong desire for power and knowledge in her heart. If she could be stronger, perhaps the queen would not worry about her safety and let her go on a dangerous mission. Just when her wish was strong in her heart, her eyes seemed to see a lot of knowledge turning into a gray-brown torrent rushing in, trying to drown her. Such a scene instantly reminded her of the scene of being chased by knowledge. It was the queen who gave her a pair of glasses that could seal the eyes of prying secrets, helping her avoid the pursuit of knowledge. At present, this pair of glasses is still worn on her eyes and has not been taken off. It stands to reason that no strange knowledge will come to her all at once. Unless someone is pushing knowledge behind the scenes to form a torrent and want to swallow her. Catalina did not let herself think about it anymore, but summoned the mysterious astronomical instrument placed on the table, activated the astronomical instrument, and the surrounding stars changed, as if a starry sky descended here, protecting her tightly inside. When the chasing knowledge encountered this starry sky, it subconsciously stopped the direction of its advance, and even wanted to escape for its life, but it seemed to have spirituality, silently sensing for a while, as if to exclude some wrong options, and the free knowledge began to gather into a torrent and wash over. The starry sky formed by the astronomical instrument is not the real starry sky after all, and this starry sky is not the starry sky that makes people afraid. The torrent of knowledge broke through the starry sky, and countless knowledge turned into mysterious and agile symbols, like fairies of knowledge, rushing into Catalina's brain, as if wanting her to taste the mysterious knowledge from the taboo as soon as possible. Catalina's face turned pale, and her retreating body knocked over the table. The astrolabe in her hand made a cracking sound that could not bear the weight, and then collapsed and shattered. Just as the astrolabe cracked, a new light spot bloomed above the gray fog. At the same time, a small light spot rose next to the light spot belonging to Bernadette in the Hall of Stars. But Catalina didn't know these things. Now she was being polluted by knowledge beyond her ability. Among them were secret past events from the ancient sun god era, taboo knowledge from the starry sky, and also a small part of the knowledge that she had always longed for, such as how to advance to a higher sequence. The vast and endless knowledge gradually spread in Catalina's brain, trying to completely pull her into the abyss of knowledge. On the sea, Klein, who was hunting a pirate worth 2,000 gold pounds, suddenly felt that some minor changes were happening above the gray fog. He took off the head that represented the identity of the pirate, then found an empty bathroom, walked 4 steps backwards, and entered the gray fog. A new light spot appeared near the light spots of Miss Justice, Mr. Hanged Man, etc., which meant that a new member had opened a connection with the gray fog due to various coincidences. As long as you are willing, you can pull the other party to the gray fog, participate in the Tarot Club, and become a member of it. The Tarot Club has not had new members for a long time, and Klein quickly cast his eyes over it. It was the captain's room on a ship. Because he had recently hunted the leaders of various pirate groups, he was as familiar with the various arrangements in the captain's room as going to the bathroom. It was a lady, in a broken starry sky, covering her head, looking very painful, as if she was suffering from some kind of crisis. With the power of the gray fog, Klein saw the true face of the endless knowledge light spots surrounding the lady. Behind those spots of knowledge, he saw a pair of hidden pupils. They were using the power of the knowledge torrent to spy on the tortured lady in front of him. At least it was the work of a sequence 2 angel. Klein could only roughly guess the sequence level of the owner of the pair of pupils, and could not determine whose eyes they were. But they were related to the knowledge torrent, and at least a sequence 2 angel level existence, which had narrowed the scope greatly. The peeping pupils, could they be from the secret peeping sequence? Then this lady should be a sequence 5 astrologer. This is the suppression of the higher sequence extraordinary people over the lower sequence extraordinary people. Klein saw it more clearly, but he did not immediately pull the lady into the gray fog. He currently had no effective way to deal with the existence of an angel of at least sequence 2, even though the other party only cast a glance at him. He needed to make some preparations before trying to help this lady who was being chased by knowledge. Now he could only let her endure the pain for a while. At this moment, Klein saw the broken and dim starry sky around the lady bloom again. The bright starlight purified the erosion from the torrent of knowledge in an instant. The pupils hidden behind the knowledge light spots also hurried away the moment the starry sky lit up again, without stopping for a moment. Did this lady rely on her own strength to fight back and solve the troubles that troubled her? As expected of a sequence 5 astrologer, she indeed possessed the mysterious power to reverse the situation, and even the starry sky could become their helper. Klein observed for a while and found that there was no abnormality. He even divined once before trying to contact the lady and guide her to the gray fog. Catalina stared blankly at the bronze table in front of her, and looked at the Mr. Fool above the gray fog with shock on her face. After a long time, she trembled and said, "Where is this place?" After asking, she couldn't help but shudder. What happened today was too weird. The knowledge torrent that should have been avoided suddenly found her. When she was about to fall into the abyss of knowledge, a starry sky replaced the starry sky she had, thus scaring away the knowledge torrent that entangled her. At that moment, she saw a magnificent and mysterious starry hall, and saw a mysterious existence whose face could not be seen clearly sitting on the starry hall. The sky was full of stars, and all the light gathered on that figure. Although she had never seen it before, she soon understood the other party's identity. The starry sky, the hall, this is the stars. It is the stars that the Queen believes in. Because of the Queen, the light of the stars also gave her some of his protection. But the stars that solved her troubles had no intention of talking to her and soon disappeared. While she was still in a daze, she was brought to this gray fog world again, saw the bronze long table, and saw a different mysterious figure sitting at the head. This was not the stars, but another ancient existence. The various changes in the situation almost made her brain crash on the spot. A gathering place for people like you who come here by chance. Klein explained patiently, "You can call me the Fool." "The Fool? You are the Fool of the Tarot Club." Catalya was shocked again. She had just met the stars, and then she was brought to this mysterious place by the Fool. When did she become so popular? Klein just smiled at the shocked lady. After she recovered a little, he spoke, "If you want, you can also join the Tarot Club and become a new member of the Tarot Club." Currently, in the Tarot Club, apart from him who is about to be promoted to Sequence 5 Secret Master, Miss Justice and Mr. Hanged Man have just entered Sequence 6 not long ago. The addition of a Sequence 5 astrologer with extraordinary path of keeping secrets can make the strength of the entire Tarot Club go one step further. More importantly, he has recognized the origin of the lady in front of him. Sequence 5 astrologer, and a captain, plus the general image outline. The entire sea is only the captain of the Star Pirates, the captain of the future, Admiral of the Star, Catalya. Her relationship with Bernadette is also an important reason to join the Tarot Club. After all, the extraordinary knowledge and help that Mr. Hanged Man can provide now has gradually failed to keep up with the overall progress of the Tarot Club members. The joining of this Admiral of the Star can just make up for this shortcoming. Catalya remained silent and did not speak. After thinking for a long time, she decided to join the Tarot Club and attend the party here. The Fool is as mysterious as the stars. Since the Queen is already a believer of the stars, I can help her eavesdrop on the news from the Fool. This way, I will be more useful to the Queen. Pick a tarot card that represents your identity. I choose the Hermit card. I will summon you again before the next tarot meeting. After finishing her conversation with the Fool, Catalya left the gray mist and returned to the real world. She stared at herself in the mirror in a daze for a long time. Today's experience was too dreamy. She saw the stars and the Fool. The Queen is right, I am too insignificant. Catalya fully understood herself. Looking back now, some of her past unwillingness and rebellion were indeed so childish that it made people laugh. No wonder the Queen always felt that she was still a child who had not grown up. After a long silence, she picked up the pen again and began to write a letter to the Queen. She told the Queen all about her experience today, and said that she would follow her orders to leave here and return to safe seas. The messenger from the spirit world was busy again, carrying letters across the vast sea. On the sea, they seem far apart from each other, but the speed of news spreading is no slower than on land. The news that someone suspected to be the last tomb of Emperor Russell was quickly learned by the major pirate groups, and the Church of the Storm and other righteous churches also received corresponding news at the same time. Some pirate groups who believe in their strength have already set off and regard the tomb of Emperor Russell as their trophy. Some unknown small pirate groups also want to use Emperor Russell's treasure to become famous, or simply to increase their knowledge. Currently, there are two main speculations about the mausoleum left by Emperor Russell in the sea. The first speculation is that they believe that Emperor Russell had already predicted his final outcome before he was assassinated, so he ordered his trusted 4 horsemen of the apocalypse to secretly transport the huge wealth he had accumulated to an uninhabited island at sea. Store it for future needs. The second guess is that Emperor Russell has not completely fallen. He has been sleeping in the secret mausoleum that has been built long ago, waiting for someone to resurrect him. If someone can help him resurrect, he will fulfill the wishes of his helpers. On the hope named by Audrey, Audrey was listening carefully to Zio's description of various legends on the sea. Those treasures are still too far away from us, and there will definitely be many well-known pirate groups competing for them. We should focus on other aspects. Zio's face showed a look of excitement and excitement. What new goal? Audrey cooperated and gave Zio a podium to continue talking. They are the pirates who are wanted with bounties on them. Shu clenched his fists and said excitedly, we will definitely encounter a lot of pirates along the way. As long as we are careful, we will definitely be able to earn a lot of money by hunting pirates. Bounty, and at the same time, our actions also reduce pirate attacks for coastal residents. Quote. Audrey's eyes lit up. Making money by hunting pirates was really a good suggestion. She has never made money with her own hands like this, and she always thought that she needed a few actual battles to test her strength. Don't look at me, I will only provide you with some help. 4C expressed his thoughts decisively. It's okay to make some money, but don't take too many risks. Zio quickly explained, don't worry, I'm not that big-hearted yet. We hunt pirates whose bounties are less than 1,000 gold pounds. Most of them are Sequence 8 or Sequence 9, and some are even ordinary people. Audrey was even more excited. She was now the hypnotist of Sequence 6. If Susie was included, there were 2 hypnotists. According to the strength classification standards of pirates on the sea, she is only one step away from being a pirate general. Miss Audrey, what do you think? This is an excellent business. Zio blinked her big bright eyes and encouraged her hard. She mainly wanted to use Audrey to get Mr. Hastur to help. Mr. Hastur, what do you think? Audrey looked at Hastur, who had been silent all morning. It is indeed a good idea, but 1,000 gold pounds is too little, so the target group is set to be pirates with less than 10,000 gold pounds. Zio couldn't hide her surprise and said, Mr. Hastur, you have such a big appetite. Audrey also looked at Hastur curiously. She didn't have much idea about 10,000 gold pounds. She just thought that Mr. Hastur was not short of money, right? Audrey, Hugh, you can give yourself a louder code name. Every time you complete a bounty in the future, your reputation can further spread across the sea. At this time, even 4C was a little excited. They finally arrived at the sea, and with Mr. Hastur's support, they could indeed cause a lot of troubles. Audrey was in a bit of trouble. She liked the title Miss Justice very much, but using this nickname in front of 4C was simply exposing her true identity. But soon, Audrey's brows widened and she looked at Susie, who was lying on the deck lazily basking in the sun. I can combine it with Susie and come up with a wonderful code name. Susie shook herself up, turned over, changed direction and continued to bask in the sun. Soon, Zio decided on his codename, the Hammer of Judgment. 4C couldn't help but put his head on his forehead and complained, your name is more resounding than the 3-inch ding called Judgment. Quote. Zio was stunned for a moment, and then he fiercely pounced on 4C, muttering all the time, aren't I just a little shorter than you? Why do you have to emphasize my height so much? Isn't this a vivid image? I will fight with you. Audrey watched Zio and Furs play around, and also thought of her own code name, the Dog of the Heart. This is a name that was thought of by combining the Dragon of the Heart and Susie. It is simple, easy to remember, and very distinctive. After listening to it, Asta smiled and said, I think the name of the Dog of Imagination is more appropriate. The Dog of Imagination, the Dog of Imagination. Audrey repeated it silently several times, and felt that the word, imagination, was more specific than the heart, and it had a higher level of oppression. Woof. Susie, who had sharp ears, heard Audrey and Asta talking about her, and hurriedly got up and trotted over. Susie, what do you think of the code name of the Dog of Imagination? Woof. Susie looked at Audrey with a puzzled look. You also think this code name is very suitable, right? Then it is decided to be this one. Audrey smiled, which forced Susie to look at Asta for help. Don't worry, the code name of the Imagination Dog will surely resound throughout the ocean in the future. Woof. Susie really wanted to ask, do you care about a dog's own opinion? Although the code name of the imagination dog does sound good, it still has to fight against this forced behavior. In the end, the code name of Hugh, who was playing with Furs, was changed from the Hammer of Judgment to the Whip of Judgment. Audrey and Furs looked at each other, resisted the urge to laugh, and smiled in praise. Looking at Zio's satisfied smile, Furs still didn't ask the heart-wrenching question, can you really swing a long whip with your height? I'm afraid you'll be tied up by the long whip. Furs, don't you want to join our pirate hunting team? If you don't work hard, you won't get a share of the bounty. Brain of wisdom, this is my code name. Zio said with disdain, you are so smart, but you are just a salted fish who only knows how to lie flat. Furs's cheeks flushed slightly, and she glared at Asta angrily. Ever since Asta accidentally said that her temperament was similar to that of a salted fish, Zio liked to call her salted fish, and sometimes even Miss Audrey almost called her Miss Salted Fish. Susie, who had already hidden in the shade, looked at the playful sounds over there and sighed heavily. People and dogs don't share the same joys and sorrows, I just think they are noisy. At night, Hasta came to the Hall of Stars again. This time, he did not descend immediately, but looked at the star container, which was normal. When he entered the star container last night to play the role of the lost man, he sealed his memory, and after the daybreak, he naturally remembered what happened last night. What surprised him most was that the star container would actually be connected with the Yellow King. He imitated the Yellow King's dress, flipped through the Child of the Stars he bought, and did something similar to the Yellow King. If he was playing the role of the lost man through him, then he was playing the Yellow King through himself. Except for the Yellow Monk organization, Hasta never encountered any traces related to the Yellow King, and he did relax his vigilance a little. But he did not expect that his entanglement with the Yellow King would actually affect the star container. Could it be that he, who had lost his memory, was the Yellow King by instinct? Hasta had been thinking about this question today, but in the end he could not confirm his speculation. After observing for a while, Hasta decided to try again to see if the star container that sealed its memory again tonight would embark on a similar path as the King in Yellow. When he was about to descend, he suddenly noticed that 2 pirate ships were approaching here in the nearby sea. Are they rushing to deliver the bounty to Audrey and Hugh? Hasta decided to watch from the Star Hall for a while to see how Audrey and Hugh hunted pirates for the first time. After a while, the cook and maid on the ship also noticed that there were ships approaching, but they did not make a sound or remind them, as if nothing had happened. The first to discover the abnormality was Susie, whose nose smelled the strange smell from the sea breeze. It woke up Audrey, and knocked on the door of the room where Hugh and Furs lived with Audrey. After they gathered together, Hasta pretended to be asleep and let them solve what happened tonight by themselves. Faced with such a situation, Furs, Hugh and others naturally understood that Hasta was deliberately trying to take the opportunity to test them. Audrey said seriously, Susie, our real adventure has begun. Woof. Susie raised her head and wagged her tail in cooperation. Audrey and others briefly discussed the plan for a while, and then asked Zio to go out to attract attention first. Furs was responsible for rescuing Zio at any time to avoid any accidents. Audrey was responsible for sneak attacks, and Susie was responsible for getting around. After they finished discussing the plan, 2 ships carrying pirates also approached the Hope and began to board the ship. Their unhesitating and reckless actions made Zio not have much hope for this group of pirates. It is estimated that among this group of pirates, there is not even one on the wanted list with a reward. The cook and maid stood at a distance, watching calmly, with no intention of stepping forward. Zio's appearance immediately attracted the attention of the pirates aboard the Hope. Soon, many pirates commented on her appearance and height. When someone mentioned that her height was a pity, Zio couldn't control her anger. She just shouted. The pirate's mental world was like being beaten with a heavy hammer, and he couldn't control his knees. Some pirates who were less able to bear it already had tears in their eyes and began to talk about the various sins they had committed in their lives. In terms of interrogation, the trial method has a natural advantage. Even a simple deep shout has the ability to be no less than a Buddhist lion's roar. It can really make people reveal their feelings and change their minds. You are the only ones who dare to comment on my height. Zio snorted coldly, took out the long whip from around his waist, put the head and tail together first, pulled hard twice, making a snapping sound, and then whipped it towards the pirate closest to him. Snapped. The pirate's face was left with a string of bright red whip marks, and he cried out in pain while covering his bleeding cheek. Zio flexibly retracted the whip and whipped it at the other pirates, which soon caused a wail of pain. These pirates were ordinary people. They lost their ability to fight after being frightened by Shu's deep shout. Someone wanted to rush up and hug Zio's body, trying to use the natural strength gap between men and women to suppress the long whip in Zio's hand. Unfortunately, before he could even touch Zio's dress, he was knocked to the ground by a whip. On such a ship, there is an arbiter. A figure walked out from behind the pirates. From the respect and crowding of the surrounding pirates, it was not difficult to tell that he was the captain of the pirate group. Before he could finish his words, his mind, including him and the other 20-odd pirates who boarded the Hope, were instantly controlled, and they stood motionless in place. Controlling so many people in one breath, Miss Audrey, you are so handsome. Zio couldn't help but cheer for Miss Audrey in his heart. Seeing that the situation was completely under control, 4C, who was still hiding in the dark, was speechless. She seemed to have played no role at all. In this case, how will the reward be divided later? What made her feel even more ashamed was that Susie, who had been in her field of vision just now, had disappeared. She must have gone to implement the previous plan of sneak attack from behind. It would be too dangerous for Susie to act alone. I have to help it. Yes, it is like that. 4C decided to pay attention and sneaked from the Hope to the two pirate ships. This is a small pirate group, with a total number of less than 50 people, including a dozen handymen and non-combatants responsible for the kitchen. After being taken away from the Hope, the pirates who remained on the ship posed no threat at all. After Hugh and Audrey finished dealing with all the pirates on board the ship and tied them up, Hugh held a blood-stained whip and showed a kind smile, and quickly extorted all the private money from these pirates. Where are 4C and Susie? It's time to go to the finishing touches. Hugh and Audrey went to the pirate ship together. On one of the ships, all the crew members fell into a deep sleep. When they got to the end, Susie's voice was faintly heard. It was lying on the sofa in the captain's cabin at the moment. Two mind-controlled crew members were serving it like a god. They took out the best food on the ship to entertain Susie. One of them was still kneeling in front of the sofa, massaging Susie religiously. I really enjoy it. Zio was filled with emotion. Susie was able to deal with the people on this ship so easily. Her strength was also very good. She didn't know how Miss Audrey trained her. When they arrived on another boat, 4C was standing at the stern of the boat in a trance. She had searched carefully and found nothing valuable on the boat. When the 3 people and 1 dog returned to the ship, in addition to finding about 200 gold coins in cash and 100 gold pounds, there were only some less valuable goods. Zio took out all the pirate wanted posters he had collected and began to search them one by one. He actually found a reward related to this pirate group. Jarok, the leader of the Yahui pirate group, has a bounty of 500 gold pounds. He has robbed merchant ships many times with ruthless methods and has 7 or 8 lives on hand. The name is not bad, but the bounty is a little low. Zio sighed with a little regret. Audrey didn't care about this, she was just thinking about the huge gap between ordinary people and extraordinary people. She didn't exert much force, but the spiritual world of these pirates couldn't bear it. Such an adventure was too simple. What to do with these pirates? Hugh asked. Leave it to the official organization. Audrey answered naturally. 4C coughed lightly and said, Miss Audrey, this is at sea, and we can't dock at any time. In fact, the best way is to kill all these pirates, and there will be basically no innocent people, but in front of Miss Audrey, she would not make such a bloody suggestion. Audrey realized this and remained silent, but finally decided to hand them over to the official organization when she arrived at the next port. She couldn't bring herself to do other options. Seeing them hesitate, the pirates began to compete in acting skills, all of them telling how they had to join the pirate group. One of them had an old mother to take care of, and the other had an old father who was seriously ill and paralyzed in bed. There were also people who said that there were several children to feed at home. The truth and lies were intertwined, trying to confuse Audrey and others. Unfortunately, it is very difficult to lie in front of an extraordinary person who is an audience. Zio just snorted coldly and cut off the leader of their pirate group. The gushing blood immediately made all the pirates silent, and they dared not to sell misery at will. Hasta just watched from a distance and had no intention of helping them to finish the end. This was the first lesson in Audrey's adventure career. Gambling is a very tempting way of entertainment, especially for pirates who hang their heads on their belts all year round. Drinking, lust, and gambling are the best ways for them to relax every time they return from the sea. In order to earn the heavy gold pounds in the pockets of pirates who have successfully returned from the looting, some ports have specially built a place for gambling and entertainment. Pool Port is such a port that provides various high-quality services for pirates. One makes money and the other enjoys it. It is a match made in heaven. Here, a woman may become the mistress of dozens of pirates at the same time. As long as the lover is not a member of the same pirate group, not many pirates will be entangled in this matter. After all, they may have other temporary mistresses in other ports. On the sea, not many people will care about such things. There are indeed many pirates who care about it at the beginning, and even duels have occurred for this. After more than a dozen rounds of duels, the pirates who stayed no longer care. Of course, there are also many girls who love a pirate and finally marry and have children with the pirate. They may be deceived or simply like him. But one thing remains unchanged, no matter how to take a bunch of glittering gold coins out of a pirate's pocket. Tenor is a pirate who likes to spend all the gold coins on him here. He is not an ordinary pirate, but the second mate of the famous Fox pirates. Their captain is Granum, known as the Swift Fox. Just 2 days ago, their captain, Swift Fox, was nailed to the mast by a pirate hunter, and his flamboyant red hair eventually turned dull. When he thought of the fierce appearance of the pirate hunter, he couldn't help trembling in his heart and often woke up in the middle of the night. That was the legendary pirate hunter Gehrman Sparrow, known as the pirate nemesis. Not to mention the captain of their Fox pirates, even the pirate general would be hunted by him if he was not careful. He can be called the most active pirate hunter recently. Fortunately, at that time, he realized that something was wrong and hurriedly took part of the captain's wealth and left quickly on a small boat. With money, the only place he thought of was here. After all, he who lost the protection of the pirate group could easily become a favorite in the eyes of other pirates. Death might be easier for him than eating a bowl of noodles. It would be better to come here and enjoy it before death. He played in the hotel for 3 days and 2 nights, felt a little boring, and then went to the casino here. When he came out of the casino a few days later, the gold coins in his pocket had shrunk a lot. But he could still live a very luxurious life. Late at night, he held a bottle of rum given by the casino in his hand, drinking while dancing briskly, and his heels made a clacking sound with the stone road on the seashore. While thinking about where to go to have fun tomorrow, a figure in ragged yellow clothes appeared in front of him. Just a pair of eyes, he was half sober, and his eyes turned from blurry to solemn. He had been wandering on the line between life and death, and he felt a fear from the bottom of his heart for the appearance of this ragged yellow figure. The figure just stood there quietly, with his back to him, but he seemed particularly tall, and even the light of the crimson moon in the sky seemed dimmed by his presence. A mysterious figure in ragged yellow clothes, active in the middle of the night, or was he playing tricks? Tenor looked at the other person quietly for a while, not sure whether the ragged yellow-clothed figure was coming for him, but he still secretly took out the short dagger hidden in his sleeve, held it tightly, and then walked sideways while looking at it. The two of them pulled away from each other by a distance of 7 or 8 meters. With this safe distance, Tainuli finally breathed a sigh of relief. But when he bypassed the ragged yellow-clothed figure, there was still an insurmountable figure in front of him, and he continued to try several times. Every time he tried, he not only failed to stay away, but got closer and closer to the other person, from a safe distance of 7 or 8 meters, gradually shortened to 3 meters, 2 meters, and finally face to face. Even at such a close distance, Tenor did not see the figure of the person in front of him clearly, but he realized that he might have encountered a terrible existence. Taking a deep breath, he bent down, kicked his right foot back hard, and killed with a dagger in hand. But before his dagger touched the yellow clothes, the dagger dissolved inch by inch, and his right hand holding the dagger also dissolved at the same time. No, no, ah. The intense pain, the pain penetrated his bones, and his right palm and the whole arm melted away at that moment, leaving only an arm with white bones. Tenor was so scared that he sat on the ground, looking at his right arm with only bones left, his lips turned pale and he trembled. I didn't mean to offend you, I just. Tenor just kept talking for a long time, but couldn't find a suitable reason. Coupled with the pain in his right arm, he couldn't concentrate on thinking. Finally, he could only close his eyes and wait for death to come. But after a while, he found that his head was still on his neck and he was not dead. He opened his eyes again, and the ragged yellow figure in front of him who was suppressing him so much that he couldn't breathe was gone. Tenor was stunned for a moment, and then looked at his right arm again. It was indeed a white bone that could be broken by a slight shake. It can be seen that what happened just now was not a dream. He sat on the ground for a long time, until he gradually got used to the pain in his right arm. He struggled to get up from the ground. But before he could take 2 steps, he saw a figure he didn't want to see, the pirate hunter German Sparrow. He actually chased him here. Tenor was so scared that he sat on the ground again, and he didn't care that the ground was dirty, and he banged his head. The legendary pirate hunter German Sparrow just looked at Tenor's right arm curiously. The white bone right arm was obviously not caused by ordinary extraordinary abilities. In his impression, he had not met an extraordinary person who could display such extraordinary abilities. It was very interesting. Tonight was also very interesting. He picked up a bounty for free. He looked at it twice, walked over, and then ended his life in the terrified eyes of Tenor. After all, this was a pirate worth 800 gold pounds, and no matter how small it was still a piece of meat. This is really a good place. German Sparrow looked at the brothel in the distance, which was still brightly lit, and took out a handkerchief to wipe the blood stains on his hands. After wiping it clean, he did not change his face, but went directly to the brothel with this face. Ordinary pirates don't need to run away when they meet him. Those who need to run away are famous pirates on the wanted list with bounties marked on them. Their escape is conducive to selecting targets and facilitating his next hunt. But when German Sparrow walked along this street, he encountered corpses with only bones left on the road. It is not difficult to see from the bright colors of their clothes that they have definitely not been dead for a long time, and it is very likely that they have just been killed. German Sparrow stood on the street for a while, but finally did not choose to go to the den of gold consumption because the skeletons were spreading along the street. Faced with the bizarre unknown, he did not want to take risks to avoid accidents. On the sea, you can live longer if you know how to restrain your curiosity. German Sparrow turned back in the direction he came from, found the contact point of the Storm Church, reported that he had killed Tenor, and then took 800 gold pounds and came to an ordinary bar. He ordered a glass of the Wizard of Oz here, and asked for a portion of barbecue and smoked sausage as a side dish. His arrival caused quite a stir, and someone had already sneaked away to report the incident. German Sparrow did not stop him, but just calmly enjoyed his wine tonight, thinking about the bizarre scene he encountered tonight. He arrived late at that time, and only had time to see a yellow figure flash by. As for the rest, he saw nothing. After enjoying a glass of fine wine, German Sparrow took out a golden, particularly ostentatious gold-inlaid pocket watch as if no one was around. He took a look and saw that it was 5:32, and it was a short time before dawn. Click. He put away the pocket watch and glanced at the drinkers in the bar. They were so scared that they lowered their heads to avoid being targeted by this pirate hunter who killed pirates without blinking an eye. German Sparrow walked out of the bar calmly with a bottle of Gilger beer he had just bought in his hand. His eyes passed over the sea where the sun was about to rise, and he glanced at the direction of the gold-consuming den. He had a premonition that after tonight, that den of brothel would be completely swallowed up by the darkness. As time passed, when the first ray of sunlight broke through the blockade of the sea and shone brightly, German Sparrow seemed to see the ragged yellow-clothed figure again. Although it only flashed and disappeared, he did not doubt his vision. About an hour later, the entire Pool Harbor fell into an unprecedented panic. The money-making den that made money like water collapsed and disappeared completely, and the skeletons were buried with it. It's really dangerous. German Sparrow sighed and left Pool Harbor. As for the bizarre things that happened last night, he was not curious at all, nor did he want to understand, let alone go to the gray fog to secretly divine. He changed his face and went to the pier to buy a ticket to leave with a new identity. He heard someone discussing what happened last night, but he just listened silently and had no intention of joining the discussion. It is said that someone witnessed that there was an infectious disease in that place. Anyone who was infected last night would have his entire body of flesh and blood fall off, and then turn into a pile of white bones as white as snow, like works of art. In the end, the gods in the sky could not bear it, and in order to prevent the pollution from spreading, they sent down divine punishment and wiped out the infected area. The man spoke in a serious manner. When he was ridiculed and disbelieved, he revealed another explosive news. Last night, a god incarnate walked on earth. He wore a ragged yellow robe. Ordinary people could not see his true face and could only watch his back from a distance. Hearing this description, the vague figure in Klein's mind seemed to be much clearer. He could not be sure whether it was a god incarnate, but the figure was indeed wearing a ragged yellow robe and walking on earth. Ragged yellow robe, walking on earth, indescribable. Wait, this description seems a bit familiar. Klein suddenly froze in place, with a lot of thoughts in his mind. It was not until the ticket checker reminded him that he ended all his fantasies and passed the ticket check first. Board the ship. In just a few minutes of thinking just now, he found the answer to the corresponding question. The King in Yellow. The name King in Yellow is quite familiar to Klein. After all, anyone who knows something about the Cthulhu mythology system will basically recognize the octopus-headed Cthulhu who lives in the depths of the sea, as well as his body. The King in Yellow in ragged yellow clothes. Although he didn't particularly study the Cthulhu mythology in the original world, he had a little understanding of it and knew that the King in Yellow was one of the common incarnations of the old god Hastur. Wait, if the figure in ragged yellow clothes last night is really the King in Yellow, then he is most likely the incarnation of the outer god Hastur walking in the world. An old incarnation of the outer god. Klein was suddenly very glad that he did not follow his curiosity to find out what happened last night. Instead, he left in time to avoid the danger zone, and did not use divination to reconstruct what happened last night afterwards. Sure enough, one can't have too much curiosity. Klein breathed a sigh of relief, but soon he thought of something important again. The King in Yellow and Hastur. If the King in Yellow exists, then Hastur. I once met a earl named Hasta Campbell in Backland. He felt extremely mysterious to me. No, it should just be a pure coincidence, right? Klein's heart beat rapidly. He quickly suppressed this strange feeling and did not think about this matter in depth. Who knows if the other party also has the ability to have everything he says must be known. The ship, which traveled 2 days and 1 night, soon arrived at other nearby ports, and nothing happened along the way. When Klein went to search for information about other pirates who had bounties on their heads, he heard another interesting thing. Recently, a new pirate hunting combination appeared on the sea. It is said to be a combination of 3 people and 1 dog. Its members are the Whip of Judgment, the Brain of Wisdom, and the Dog of Fantasy. Klein frowned slightly. The business of hunting pirates was becoming increasingly difficult, and now there were new people joining in to compete with him. Calculating his gains during this period, the debt owed by Miss Messenger has dropped to 1,000 gold coins. He also has a deposit of nearly 4,000 gold pounds, which is quite a lot, but the money is not enough to go to Backland to buy a set. A nicer house. It seems that we can only risk hunting those pirate generals so that we can accumulate wealth in a short period of time. Klein was sitting in a well-informed bar, drinking a 2-penny cheap beer with an unfamiliar face, thinking about his next move. While he was thinking silently, there was a noise outside the bar. It was said that someone had captured a ship of pirates and was exchanging bounties with the Church of the Storm personnel at the port. Although the bounty for each pirate is not high, it can't handle the large number of people, and there are many ordinary pirates who are worthless inside. The crowd began to discuss that this approach seemed to be what the 3-person and 1-dog combination like to do. It is said that every time this new group arrives at a port, they will unload a bunch of pirates from the ship, exchange them for bounties to buy daily necessities, and then continue to leave. There were many well-known pirates who wanted to dampen the momentum of this new group, or to become famous. But without exception, these well-known pirates became living bounties at the next port. This also makes this new group more and more famous. Klein just listened silently, with no particular interest, but the other party seemed to be heading on the same path as him, heading towards the mysterious island where Emperor Russell was revealed. Even the job of hunting pirates is getting involved these days. Klein sighed and had no intention of continuing to rest. He had to speed up his intelligence collection, otherwise all the pirates with bounties on the sea would be robbed. On the sea, on the Hope, Hugh, 4C, Audrey, and Susie were dividing the bounty. The total bounty we obtained this time is 2,780 gold pounds. Including the cash found on their boats and on their bodies, the total is about 3,400 gold pounds. Hugh started counting and dividing the money according to each person's contribution. She and Audrey took the majority, each with 30%, and 4C and Susie each with 20%. Woof. Susie used her paws to pick up the money that Hugh had shared, counted it carefully, and then motioned to Audrey to save the money. After getting along for a long time, Zio and 4C have gradually understood Susie's extraordinary side, and they are no longer surprised at Susie's anthropomorphic performance. 4C went from feeling ashamed to be on par with Susie at the beginning, to feeling grateful that he was not left behind by Susie. It would be a real shame if one day Zio, Miss Audrey, and Susie each shared 30% of the bounty, and she could only share 10%. The closer we get to the legendary location of Emperor Russell, the greater the probability of a well-known pirate appearing. I can't wait to go on a hunt. Zio narrowed his eyes and waved his fists excitedly after earning 1,000 gold pounds. You still have to be careful to avoid accidents. 4C was as calm as ever. Audrey has been silent. She is no longer as interested in hunting pirates as she was at the beginning. Now she wants to explore the unknown parts of the sea. At night, Audrey, who couldn't sleep, knocked on Asta's door. Hasta, who originally planned to go to bed, put on a set of pajamas and opened the door. Tonight, Audrey's face was covered with a faint layer of sadness. She seemed to be troubled by something. Even the bright moonlight could not dispel the sadness between her eyebrows. Mr. Asta, I'm sorry to disturb your rest. Facing the sea, people are easily confused. Asta said, and walked out of the cabin with Audrey and came to the bow deck. Even at night, the whole ship was moving slowly forward. A high-hanging fishing lamp could barely illuminate the forward trajectory of the bow that cleared the seawater. Occasionally, some fish with strong phototropism would gather in the light. Mr. Asta, are you used to life in the sea? Audrey stood at the bow, and the night sea breeze made her carefully cared hair messy. Asta simply set up an air wall to block the sea breeze and began to chat with Audrey about some interesting things on the sea. Boredom is a threshold that people who live on the sea for a long time must cross. People always give too much imagination to the sea, but the actual life on the sea is boring and far from being as relaxed and casual as on land. The narrow range of activities makes people feel breathless from time to time. Audrey should have experienced the gap between fantasy and reality at this moment. There are many interesting things on the sea. Asta can talk about a few rumors for a long time. Audrey listened carefully, smiling from time to time as she looked at the starry sky reflected on the sea. The tranquil sea, the starry sky reflected in the sea, and the various mysterious legends told in a leisurely manner soon made Audrey's confused mood active again. Want to experience a different sea life up close? Yes, I do. Asta, who was already thirsty, opened a travel portal as high as a person in front of Audrey. Is this a portal? Audrey's eyes sparkled. She had heard about it from furs, but she had never really experienced it. This is a portal that can be traveled. It does have the ability to teleport. Asta stretched out his arm, and Audrey held his arm, and her body naturally moved closer. Woof. When the two figures disappeared in the travel portal, Susie, who had been following Audrey from a distance, trotted over and waved her paw at the place where the travel portal disappeared. Finally, it chose to lie down and wait. In the old Ross bar, when Asta showed up at the door with Audrey, who was wearing a black magician hood, it naturally attracted the attention of many people, and the noisy voices suddenly became much quieter. Their eyes were mainly on Audrey. Her tall figure and mysterious classical magician outfit easily aroused people's curiosity. But it was just a brief look. Before knowing the other person's background, no one would stare at others so much, except for stupid people, to avoid unnecessary trouble. Asta led Audrey through the crowd. During the period, a drunkard wanted to reach out and secretly touch the oil. It seemed that a gust of wind came and easily cut off his palm, and blood spilled all over the ground. The severe pain made him sober up from his drunken state in an instant. His cheeks were pale, and he hurriedly wrapped the wound with clothes, picked up the broken hand on the ground, and left here quickly. If the treatment was timely, there was still a chance to save the palm. Audrey noticed this scene, and her cheeks hidden under the black hood were slightly hot and flushed. Did Mr. Asta protect her just now? When she came to the bar, the wine wall with various fine wines aroused Audrey's strong interest. Although she had seen a far more shocking wine wall in Earl Hall's wine cellar. But the wine wall here was like a symbol of enthusiasm and freedom. Just looking at it made people feel excited and couldn't help but want to order every bottle of wine to taste. The gradually noisy atmosphere around, and some people used simple musical instruments to beat out bold tunes, all urged the guests who came here to order a glass of wine and enjoy this lively night. Freshness and excitement coexist. Audrey ordered 3 colorful wines in one breath. Although she didn't know the taste of these wines, just looking at them in front of her was very satisfying. Asta on the side has begun to enjoy the excitement brought by the wine. He tilted his head slightly to look at Audrey's face, which was full of anticipation, excitement and fear, and couldn't help but say, "The wine here is usually quite strong, so it's better to drink less." Audrey nodded, and finally chose a wine that smelled sweet and fragrant and tasted it in small sips. Asta glanced at the name of the wine, chuckled and shook his head. He had already foreseen how Audrey would look drunk later. For more thrilling fanfiction stories like this, check out my channel Fanfic audiobook. Dive into epic adventures, mysterious realms, and legendary journeys brought to life through immersive storytelling. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more amazing audiobooks.